Chapter 34-43. The moment the shattered fireflies touched the ancient Buddha relic, they immediately fused with it. Like adding the finishing touch, the flamboyant seven-colored brilliance suddenly converged. The luster around the ancient Buddha relic gradually turned white, just like an ordinary physical body. What was special was that the light gradually gathered at the back of the relic's head. The face turned red with red lips and white teeth. Relic's eyes, which were originally closed, suddenly opened. His eyes were first filled with confusion, then clarity, and a look of great enlightenment flashed across his eyes. At the same time, a loud and clear noise resounded throughout the entire passage. Buddhist lights and Sanskrit chants resounded everywhere. Countless heavenly flowers appeared out of thin air and circled around Neli. Numerous heavenly maidens danced in the air along with countless heavenly dragons. Between the heavenly dragon and the heavenly maiden, there were countless flashes of Buddha's radiance. In the Buddha's radiance, there were illusions of small kiliacosms appearing one after another. The Buddha's radiance illuminated these illusions. In the Sanskrit chants, there seemed to be thousands of Buddhas chanting, Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva, this is what I heard. For a time, the Buddha gave his tree to the Garden of Solitude in the Shiwei kingdom, along with 8,000 monks of the Great Bhikkhu, Elder Sariputra, Mahakasyapa, and so on. There were 16 bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, virtuous tribulation, 1,000 bodhisattvas, and Maitreya was at the top. There were also 1,200 bodhisattvas from the other side. The Avalokiteshvara bodhisattva was the leader. Then the Venerable One of the world entered Samadhi at night. His Samadhi was called All Light. Once he entered Samadhi, his body would emit golden light. Its bright light shone brightly on the Jadori forest, like a golden color, circling around and illuminating the Manjushri room, turning into 7 layers of golden platforms. On each platform, there were 500 Buddha transformation altars. In front of Shirwanshu's room, 507 treasures lotus flowers were naturally born. They were as round as a wheel, with silver as the stem. Amarosa's mandala was its platform, and the variegated pearls were its whiskers. Its flowers illuminate the abode of the Buddha. When it exits the abode, it enters the abode of Manjushri. Amitabha. Ancient Buddha Tsaili, who was now like a living person, chanted amidst the Sanskrit chanting. Return to life, true, wonderful and auspicious. I recite according to the teachings of yoga. Body, mouth, mind, karma, vajra, tathagata, 3 secret doors. Practitioners should have the heart of Samantabhadra, and teachers should receive the diamond precepts. Only by being merciful in spite of one's life can one enter the wheel of liberation. Today, my merit is complete and I can repay the Bodhisattva's body. He should be called Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva. Before Manjushri Bodhisattva's voice died away, the light behind him emitted a brilliant Buddha's light. The Buddha's light soared into the sky, ignoring the roof of the Shenshui Palace and the ancient magic formation. It rushed out of the Saint River. It pierced straight through the void. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook, and the wind and clouds changed colors. Endless power of faith poured out from the Buddha's light like a waterfall. The golden body of the Manjushri Bodhisattva became even more plump and even taller. It didn't stop until it was about 8 feet tall. However, the power of faith didn't stop. It continued to gather like crystal threads and rushed into the light behind Manjushri's head. How could Monk Guzhan not know the cause and effect of this? A bitter smile appeared on his face. He put his palms together and knelt on the ground with difficulty. He had mixed feelings in his heart. Amitabha. Manjushri Bodhisattva chanted again and looked up. His eyes were filled with infinite wisdom. The Bodhisattva looked at Guzhan, who knelt on the ground and slightly raised the green lotus in his left hand. A ray of Buddha's light fell and covered Guzhan. Inside the Buddha's light, Guzhan's injuries healed at a visible speed. The power of faith that had disappeared was even more turbulent than before. Then, the Bodhisattva waved his right hand and the sword flashed in the air. The brave and invincible battle puppet was instantly shattered into pieces. The indigo lion that was curled up near Guzhan now had an indigo cloud under its feet and flew into the air. Manjushri Bodhisattva put away the green lotus and sword and stepped on the indigo lion, sitting cross-legged. The indigo lion roared in the air. As the Buddha's light rose higher, the endless power of faith continued to pour into the light. However, the Buddha's light gradually disappeared and all the strange phenomena disappeared in front of Gu Zhan's eyes. When the Buddha's light disappeared, Ci Hui, who had attained the Buddha's fruit of Manjushri Bodhisattva of no great wisdom, also left. Gu Zhan knelt on the ground and waited for a long time before he slowly got up. His dim eyes glanced at the messy tunnel and then fell on the broken battle puppet. He stared at it for a while as if he was recalling the days when he fought with Manjushri Bodhisattva. Then, he raised his head and looked at the stone wall where the ancient Buddha Sarira rushed out. He said to himself in a slightly sad voice, "The Bodhi Sarira is really amazing. Since it has attained the fruit in this life, it won't fall into the reincarnation cycle and won't stay in the next life. This Ci Hui is really scheming." Since he knew that the ancient Buddha Sarira was left by him in his previous life, he waited here for his 9 lives of merit to be fulfilled. He even said that he wanted to give the ancient Buddha Sarira to me. I took the risk to enter this ancient magic formation and risked my life to get out of the tunnel. It turns out that I've made a wedding dress for someone else. Since Ci Hui has attained the Buddha's fruit of Bodhisattva, then where is my merit? Could it be that because I'm a Buddhist protector, I don't deserve Ci Hui's merit? The more Gu Zhan thought about it, the more puzzled he became. His face showed a trace of ferocity. He had forgotten that Ci Hui had been good to him. Ci Hui had sensed the origin of the ancient Buddha Sarira and wanted to fulfill his wish by leading him to this place again and again. Ci Hui even sacrificed his body at the last moment and used the secret technique of Xiang Sek to save him. Ci Hui wanted to help Gu Zhan become a protector. However, Buddha's fate was Buddha's fate. The ancient Buddha Sarira was similar to the Taoist sect's Ningxi treasure. If it was Ci Hui's, it was Ci Hui's. If it wasn't Gu Zhan's, even if Gu Zhan encountered it, he wouldn't be able to obtain it. If it was fate, they would meet even if they were thousands of miles apart. If it wasn't fate, then so be it. In particular, Ci Hui gave up her physical body and secretly followed the Buddhist principles. She combined her spiritual wisdom and the Sarira into one. Finally, she achieved success in this life with a single thought. Unfortunately, such a living fruit of a thought and Ci Hui's mercy didn't wake Gu Zhan up. Instead, it aroused the hostility in his heart and poked at his sore spot, causing him to be endlessly agitated. The hole in the stone wall that the ancient Buddha Sarira rushed out of was huge. Inside, there was a faint Buddha's light flashing. Gu Zhan looked at it for a moment and pondered for a moment. Then, he urged the cloud to enter the hole. Behind the stone wall was an even bigger hall. The hall was empty. Other than a tall stone pillar in the center of the hall, and a huge oil lamp floating on top of the pillar, there was nothing else. Gu Zhan flew to the top of the stone pillar and looked around. His eyes flashed with astonishment. This was an oval-shaped hall. The surrounding stone walls and the dome above were the same as the stone walls in the tunnel. They were all made of huge green stones. However, what was different was that these green stones didn't glow with the same aqua-blue brilliance as the tunnel. Instead, a layer of Buddha's light overflowed from them. Under the Buddha's light, there were many scenes of the Buddha kingdom engraved on the green stones. In the gaps of the Buddha scenes, there were also many densely packed Sanskrit characters. They were like bats and also like incantations that connected these Buddha pictures together. Looking at the dome, there was another 10,000 Buddhas painting. However, although the Buddhas in this 10,000 Buddhas painting had different images and postures, each Buddha's face was filled with a kind of solemnity and benevolence. It was far from the solemn and stirring 10,000 Buddhas painting in the Buddhist ruins of the Dawn Rain mainland. In the center of the 10,000 Buddhas painting, there was another image of an ancient temple. Sitting cross-legged in the ancient temple was the Namo Master Shakyamuni Buddha. To the left and right of the Buddha were the Namo Master Shakyamuni Buddha and the Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. Under the 3 Buddhas of the future, present, and past stood countless bodhisattvas and arhats. Around the ancient temple, flowers bloomed, heavenly dragons roamed, and heavenly maidens danced. It was truly a solemn scene. Gu Zhan's gaze swept past the 10,000 Buddhas painting and the ancient temple's Buddha scenes. Finally, his gaze landed on a bodhisattva in front of the Buddha. This bodhisattva was the Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva, who had the same appearance as the golden body in the tunnel. Ha ha ha. Gu Zhan laughed inexplicably. He laughed so hard that tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. After he stopped laughing, he cried out in sorrow, I, Guzhan, have followed the Buddha for more than 200 years. Every day, I've racked my brains. Although I've never chanted any scriptures or worshipped Buddha, I've always disregarded my own life. In my eyes, all devils and heretics deserve to be killed. I'm a Buddhist who exterminates devils and protects Buddha. Why do I have Buddha in my heart but no path beneath my feet? Thinking of this, Guzhan prostrated himself on the stone pillar and kowtowed hard. He cried, Buddha, oh Buddha, I know this is the place where the golden body of the Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva is enshrined. It's also the place where the Buddha is wise enough to see. I kowtow here sincerely. I hope the Buddha will show me the path under my feet. How can I attain fruition? How can I? At this moment, before Guzhan could finish speaking, an old voice rang out from the oil lamp above his head. Little monk, do you want to become a Buddha? Who? Guzhan's body stiffened. He almost blurted it out, but then panic appeared on his face. He hurriedly kowtowed again and cried, Buddha, please forgive me. However, before he could finish his words, he jumped up from the stone pillar again. He formed a seal with both hands and stared at the oil lamp suspended in the air above his head. This oil lamp was different from the usual ones. It was a round plate a few feet in size. There was no wick on the plate, only a faint layer of bright yellow flame burning on it. The brilliance was very uniform. It shone on the ceiling of the hall, illuminating the million Buddha's picture and the ancient temple. Guzhan knew this was a longevity lamp. It was used to enshrine the golden body of the Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva. He had some grudges against Manjushri Bodhisattva before, so he didn't look at it carefully. Now, he had to look at it again. The longevity lamp was sky blue. The bottom was still engraved with the golden body of the Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva. However, Manjushri Bodhisattva wasn't holding a sword or a green lotus, nor was he riding on an indigo lion. Instead, he formed a seal with both hands and walked in the void. Chapter 34-44. What puzzled Guzhan the most was that there were no Sanskrit words anywhere else on the longevity lamp. There were also no images of heavenly maidens or heavenly dragons. Instead, there were layers upon layers of jade, which looked like thousands of tiny clouds. Under the blue light of the longevity lamp, the jade clouds shone with a blue brilliance. It was a rather strange sight. Guzhan rolled his eyes slightly. Following his gaze, the clouds started to float as if they were covered by the longevity lamp. Who are you? Guzhan had calmed down and didn't dare to move. He just stared at the longevity lamp and shouted, Since you're here, why don't you come out to meet me? Sir. Ha ha. The voice laughed loudly and sounded very cheerful. Little monk, you should call me benefactor, right? You can't even keep your oral precepts. How can you become a Buddha? Besides, if I'm not dim-sighted, I think I just heard. Someone here resenting Manjushri, right? Guzhan's expression didn't change as he replied blandly, I'm a Buddhist Dharma protector. It doesn't matter if I keep my oral precepts or not. As long as I can eliminate demons and protect Buddha for Buddhism, it's a great merit. A Dharma protector doesn't need to keep the precepts of Buddhism? The voice asked curiously, Why don't I know? Benefactor, you're not a disciple of Buddhism, are you? Guzhan didn't answer but asked back, You don't even know such a simple thing? It doesn't matter whether I'm a disciple of Buddhism or not. The voice said again, The important thing is that the longevity hall was built by Manjushri's body. Why did he build it at the bottom of the Saint River? Why did he build it in the antiquity times? How did he know to build it to worship his Saraira? I told him all that 100,000 years ago. It is precisely because of this that this old man has been accompanying his relic here for 100,000 years. 100,000? 100,000 years? Guzhan was dumbfounded. Then, a trace of curiosity arose in his heart. Yes, little monk. Do you think it's so easy to attain enlightenment? Manjushri Bodhisattva was a person of great wisdom and patience. As early as 100,000 years ago, he divided his relics into one and placed it here for worship. Do you know how much loneliness Manjushri had endured after cultivating here for 100,000 years? Manjushri Bodhisattva's body did this 100,000 years ago. Do you know how many times Manjushri Bodhisattva's body reincarnated? Do you know the hardships of cultivation in the mortal world? You have only cultivated for over 200 years. What right do you have to question the Bodhisattva? I Gu Zhen opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. He thought about his own suffering and then thought about C.I. Hui's previous life. She had already started her plan 100,000 years ago. He really wasn't worth mentioning. Little monk, cultivation is about cultivating the heart, not the body. All the hardships are the tribulations that Buddha imposed on you. Your jealousy, envy, and hatred are all obstacles to your cultivation. If you can't get rid of these obstacles, even if I tell you the secret of Manjushri Bodhisattva's enlightenment and let you divide a sarira to worship here, you still can't attain enlightenment. The voice was so harsh that Gu Zhen's face turned green and red. Amitabha, thank you, senior. Suddenly, Gu Zhen put his palms together and bowed. I know I'm wrong. From now on, I'll cut off the anger in my heart and focus on Buddha's way. Good. The voice was very happy. If you have such thoughts, I'll do you a great service. After saying that, Gu Zhen didn't say anything else. He moved his body and flew toward the gap in the stone wall. It seemed that he intended to leave. When Gu Zhen came to the edge of the gap, the longevity lamp was still burning. There was no flickering light. It seemed that the lamp didn't care about Gu Zhen's departure. Gu Zhen stepped out of the gap. After a moment of hesitation, he retracted his foot, lowered his head, and flew back. When he landed on the stone pillar, he said in a low voice, Senior, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask it. Gu Zhen's voice didn't come out for a long time. It was as if it had never appeared. Gu Zhen panicked. He spoke again, but there was no response from the longevity lamp. With a plop, Gu Zhen fell to the ground and kowtowed. Senior, I know you're a senior of my Buddhism sect. It was all my fault. I thought this place was the most dangerous place of the mysterious water palace. Senior, your identity is unknown, so I don't dare to believe your words. I left just to test you. Please forgive me. With that, Gu Zhen kowtowed a few more times with a proper attitude. Alas, forget it. The voice seemed to be helpless. Get up. Who am I? Fly up and see for yourself. If you weren't the first bodhisattva to come here in tens of thousands of years, I wouldn't have helped you. Yes, yes. Hearing the voice, Gu Zhen finally felt relieved. However, he still didn't dare to fly up. He smiled and said, Since I know my mistake, I don't know who you are. Senior has accompanied Manjushri Bodhisattva for more than 100,000 years. How can you not be a senior of my Buddhism sect? Even if you haven't shaved your head, you're still a senior in my heart. Shaved my head? Haha. The voice laughed faintly. I want to shave my head, but other than the Buddhist Lord, who can shave my head? Senior. Gu Zhen was shocked. He didn't understand what the voice meant. Little monk, come up and see for yourself. The voice said faintly. Gu Zhen hesitated. He wanted to see the true face of the voice, but he was also afraid that he would be disappointed. Just as he was thinking, the voice said, Little monk, you're truly detestable. Why are you so calculative in your heart? Since you want to get the cultivation method of the sarira from me, why don't you believe me? Now, I'm giving you a chance to see my true face. Why are you afraid that I'll harm you? I don't dare, I don't dare. Gu Zhen trembled slightly and said with a smile, I'm not doubting you, senior. I'm just thinking. I'm a Buddhist Dharma protector. I can't condense the sarira. Without the sarira, they can't contain the karma. All my karma and merits can't follow me to reincarnation. How can I put the sarira here? When did the Buddhist Dharma protector have such a drawback? The voice was surprised. As far as I know, Manjushri was a Buddhist Dharma protector. How can he worship the sarira here? How can it be? Gu Zhen was shocked and said hurriedly, How can Manjushri be a Buddhist Dharma protector? Little monk, if your heart is blind, could it be that your eyes are also blind? Didn't you see Manjushri's right hand? The voice seemed to be disappointed and asked, What's the use of the sword in Manjushri's hand? Isn't it used to kill demons and protect Buddha? Oh yes, I didn't think of that. Thinking of Manjushri's thunderous means before he left, Gu Zhen was shocked again and became more joyful. Little monk, look at the million Buddha painting in the longevity hall. The voice laughed. Not to mention the bodhisattvas, even the Buddha lords who achieved Buddhahood have swords in their hands. They all have the experience of being Buddhist Dharma protectors. Since they can achieve Buddhahood, Why can't you? Really? Gujan was so happy that his voice trembled. Senior, do you really know this kind of secret skill? Haha, of course, many bodhisattvas achieved Buddhahood in front of me. The voice laughed. When these bodhisattvas achieved Buddhahood, I can see all their experiences and secret skills. Do you think I know that? Senior, who are you? Gujan was shocked and asked while staring at the longevity lamp. Little monk, I asked you to come up and have a look. Why don't you come up? Do you want me to invite you? Yes, I'll go over right now. Gujan didn't dare to delay and hurriedly urged the cloud to fly up. However, when his respectful gaze landed on the longevity lamp, he was stunned again. Inside the longevity lamp, there was only a jade-green flame with a golden flame burning on it. He did not know what the jade-green flame was, but it was as clear as water. He could see through it with a single glance, but there was nothing inside. Senior? Gujan looked at the longevity lamp and then looked around. He even looked at the million Buddha painting above his head. I'm here. As the old voice spoke again, a ripple appeared within the green light. The ripple gradually increased in size, creating circular ripples within the longevity lamp. In the end, the ripples rotated, causing the flame to move as well. As Gujan stared, a dark green heavenly dragon flew out from the longevity lamp, spinning in the air. Although Gujan had already thought of many possibilities, she still couldn't help but cry out in surprise when she saw the heavenly dragon that was exactly the same as the one that flew out when Ci Hui proved the fruit. The heavenly dragon flew out of the longevity lamp, its body burning with golden flames. It circled around the entire palace before landing back into the longevity lamp. The palm-sized dragon head peeked out of the oil lamp, sending flames everywhere. A familiar voice came from the dragon's mouth. How is it? Little monk, did this old man scare you? Say, Senior. Gujan stuttered. I was indeed surprised. I didn't expect you to look like this. Gujan then probed. Senior, are you really the heavenly dragon of the Buddhist kingdom? Of course I'm the heavenly dragon. The dragon sighed. His ferocious face made Gujan feel sorrowful. If we trace back to our roots, I'm the same as you. We're both protectors of the Buddhist kingdom. No wonder you said you've seen many bodhisattvas attain fruition. Gujan was enlightened. So you're a protector for these bodhisattvas. Chapter 34-45. Little monk, you're right. Sky Dragon's head floated out of the oil lamp, and his body wandered in the green. Then, why did you come here? Why did you build this immortal palace for Manjushri? Gujan probed carefully. Alas, Manjushri asked me the same question when he was still a little monk. Sky Dragon laughed bitterly, his voice bitter to the extreme. This old man remembers clearly that this old man was protecting an Arhat Buddha fruit that day, but that Arhat's cultivation was not enough and he was attacked by the heavenly demon. I, Sky Dragon, was ordered to protect him, but this old man accidentally fell into the heavenly demon's trap and entered the void crack. Moreover, this crack in the void is very strange. By the time I broke free, I had already arrived at the Pure Land world. I was a Sky Dragon of the Buddha kingdom, so I couldn't survive in the mortal world. When I was about to vanish, I met the little monk who had just cultivated to the stationary spirit realm. At this point, Sky Dragon's voice was a little long, as if he was recalling the past 100,000 years. Gujan didn't dare to disturb him, so he listened quietly. His heart was in turmoil again. What the Sky Dragon said was unimaginable. In the hands of Manjushri, a monk in his previous life who had cultivated to the 8th level of Yuanli, there was a pious heart jade, which was the thing inside the oil lamp that Gujan saw. Gujan had never heard of this pious heart jade, but this pious heart jade could accommodate the Sky Dragon and prevent him from dissipating in the Pure Land world. Sky Dragon suggested to the monk to use the immortal palace to worship the monk Saraira to repay his kindness and to return to the Buddha kingdom. Of course, the Saraira needed to be nourished by the power of faith. The monk chose the Sage River under Sky Dragon's suggestion. Although the monk had reached the 8th level of primary energy, he didn't have the ability to open a Buddhist formation under the Sage River to build the immortal palace. Therefore, he invited a Taoist expert to join him and set up a formation under the Sage River. The immortal town was on one side of the mysterious water palace, which was specially used to worship the Saraira of Manjushri and accumulate the power of faith for the later generations of Manjushri to come here. The benefit of the sky dragon was that it could survive at the bottom of the Sage River. When the Manjushri Bodhisattva attained fruition, it would see if it had a chance to return to the Buddha kingdom. The result was just as Guzhan had expected. Tianlong's Buddhist secret art was correct. The monk who was the protector of the Dharma in the past was now reincarnated as Tsi Hui. Finally, after 100,000 years, he attained the Buddha fruit of Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva and had the opportunity to forge the 8-Zhang golden body of Bodhisattva. But what made Sky Dragon depressed was that after 100,000 years of waiting, it did not bring him a good opportunity. When Manjushri Bodhisattva achieved fruition, although Sky Dragon had already found the path to the Buddhist kingdom, he still did not have time to enter. You know what? Namo Wise Manjushri Bodhisattva's last look at the Temple of Immortals was for me. Sky Dragon said sadly. It was a kind of helplessness, a kind of apology, and a kind of sadness. After all, this old man has helped him so much. He has attained enlightenment, but this old man cannot return to the Buddhist kingdom. He feels that he owes this old man a lot. However, he is now a Manjushri Bodhisattva. If he wants to cut off his mortal ties, he can no longer help me. But although he has left me another hope. Senior, are you talking about this disciple? Guzhan could not believe it, so he asked tentatively. Sky Dragon smiled. If it's not you, who else can it be? If it's not you, would this old man tell you so much? If it's not you, based on your temperament, would this old man tell you the secret method of achieving fruition? For a moment, Guzhan felt that the lights in the Temple of Immortals were so bright, and the Buddhas in the Million Buddha painting were so amiable. His chest was filled with joy. Little monk. Sky Dragon's words came at the right time. Don't be happy too early. This old man can only tell you the secret method of achieving fruition, and even help you keep the Saraira. But the one who really needs to cultivate is yourself. And you also need to cultivate for at least 100,000 years like Manjushri Bodhisattva. Think about your temperament. How confident do you think you are? Yes, this disciple understands. Sky Dragon said with difficulty. The more difficult it was, the less Guzhan's doubts were. He hurriedly smiled and said, this disciple can't compare to Bodhisattva's previous life. But this disciple's heart towards Buddhism is not inferior to Bodhisattva's. Not to mention 100,000 years. Even if it's 200,000 years, this disciple will not let go of even the slightest chance of achieving fruition. You're worth teaching. Sky Dragon seemed to be very gratified. His dragon head swayed in the oil lamp. Manjushri Bodhisattva was just as determined back then. Alas, the situation now is so similar to back then. It's just that. Sky Dragon stopped here and dived his head into the pious heart jade, not showing his head for a long time. Guzhan, who was beside the Immortal's lamp, became a little impatient. Sky Dragon showed his head again. Guzhan asked impatiently, is there something you're worried about, senior? Or this disciple can't be cultivated? Alas, it's not like that. Sky Dragon sighed and said, this has nothing to do with you, it's this old man's problem. I'm afraid I can't wait until the day you achieve fruition. Thinking about this old man's interest is waning. Guzhan was shocked and hurriedly asked, Senior, what's going on? Can this disciple do his best for senior? You. Hee, little monk, forget it. You're only at the Lotus Realm now. You're still far from what I expected. The Sky Dragon shook his head. His voice sounded especially lonely in the spacious hall. Guzhan frowned slightly and suppressed his wildly beating heart. After thinking for a while, he raised his eyebrows and asked tentatively, Senior, are you worried about this pious heart jade? Alas, that's right. Sky Dragon sighed again. Little monk, you're quite considerate. This pious heart jade is what sustains this old man's life. Although I still have a lot of it, I don't know if it can last for 100,000 years. 100,000 years, little monk, not 10 years, 100 years, or even 10,000 years. Senior, why don't you extinguish the flame of the pious heart jade? Guzhan said regretfully. If it could be extinguished, wouldn't Sky Dragon have extinguished it long ago? Why wait until now? As expected, Sky Dragon said with a smile, the pious heart jade is a rare item in this world. The reason you don't know about it is because no one in the Pure Land knows its use. This pious heart jade is only useful to me when it's lit. If it's extinguished, I won't exist in this world anymore. Therefore, Manjushri Bodhisattva forged this longevity lamp and lit it day and night in this longevity hall. Senior, don't worry. Gujan blurted out almost without hesitation. As long as this disciple escapes from the mysterious water palace, I'll definitely travel all over the 3 great continents to help Senior find this pious heart jade. Hee, little monk, this old man appreciates your kind intentions. If this pious heart jade could be obtained with human strength, why would this old man wait until now? Sky Dragon smiled faintly and shook his head in the pious heart jade. Then, where can I go to get it? Or how can I get it? Gujan asked without hesitation. Senior, as long as you tell me, this disciple will definitely think of a way. This. Sky Dragon seemed to hesitate. After a while he said, Little monk, Manjushri Bodhisattva mentioned this to me in his past life. There's a place in the Pure Land where the pious heart jade can be found. However, with his spirit-halting realm, he doesn't dare to rashly go there. Hee, don't worry, Senior. Gujan immediately understood and said with a smile. With Senior's help, even if this disciple can't reach that place now, this disciple still has tens of thousands of years left. This disciple doesn't believe that this disciple can't reach the spirit-halting realm by the time the pious heart jade in this longevity hall is exhausted. At that time, this disciple will definitely go there and help Senior find it. Amitba, I'll be happy. Sky Dragon's entire body trembled, and the green in the longevity lamp shook violently. Little monk, with your words, this old man can rest assured. If you can help this old man find the pious heart jade, this old man will help you attain fruition. Good. This disciple is willing to listen to Senior's instructions. Gujan hastily called out. Ha. Sky Dragon laughed. Little monk, this old man will make a promise with you today. This old man will help you condense a relic, and you can leave it here, just like Manjushri did 100,000 years ago. Just like before, this old man will help you gather the power of faith. This old man will also teach you the Buddhist kingdom's secret arts and abilities, helping you reach the spirit-halting realm earlier. As for you, after leaving the profound water palace, you must help this old man find the pious heart jade. Especially, when you attain fruition, you must help this old man find a way to return to the Buddhist kingdom. As Senior said, this disciple swore a Buddhist oath before the Buddha that this disciple will do his best to find the pious heart jade for Senior. Once I reach the spirit-halting realm, I must enter it. At this point, Gujan asked in a low voice, May I know where Senior wants this disciple to go? Haha, that's enough. Sky Dragon laughed. As for the specific location, this old man will first help you condense the relic and arrange the Buddhist formation to gather the power of faith. Gujan was overjoyed when he heard this. He put his palms together and bowed. Amitba, this disciple thanks Senior for his kindness. No need to be so polite. Sky Dragon smiled. This plan for you is also for this old man. I only hope that you won't forget this in the future. In the Longevity Palace in the Sage River, there is still a Sky Dragon at death's door protecting you. This disciple doesn't wish to say any more superfluous words. This disciple sincerely hopes that Senior can escape. Even if this disciple can't attain fruition, this disciple will still help Senior out. Gujan hastily said. Wrong. Sky Dragon shouted. You must attain fruition. Otherwise, how can this old man possibly escape? You are now one with this old man. Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple understands. At this moment, Gujan had already forgotten that Ci Hui had taken the initiative and nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice. Sky Dragon paused for a moment, then smiled. By the way, little monk, you have been talking to this old man for so long. What is your Buddhist name? Chapter 34-46. Disciple's Dharma name is Gujan. Gujan answered happily. Good, Gujan. I've spoken so much nonsense. Now, I'll use the Buddhist kingdom's secret technique to condense a relic for you. Sky Dragon said solemnly. However, I'll need to use the Buddhist kingdom's grand technique to extract your karma from the 6 paths of reincarnation. Without the Buddhist kingdom's Buddhist treasure, it won't succeed. Disciple understands. Gujan naturally knew how difficult it would be. He also knew that Sky Dragon must have a way. After all, Manjushri Bodhisattva's mistake was a good example. Thus, he only answered and waited for Sky Dragon to speak. As expected, Sky Dragon said flatly, when I condensed the relic for Manjushri Bodhisattva, I used a Taoist sex artifact. It's in the mysterious water palace on the other side. Gu Zhen was stunned. His eyes darted around and he said in a low voice, That! Senior, are you talking about the immortal artifact in the mysterious water palace? Immortal artifact? Oh yes. In your eyes, it's the Taoist sect's so-called immortal artifact from the immortal world. Sky Dragon was stunned and then nodded. In my eyes, it's just a Dharma artifact. But Disciple heard that the immortal artifact was used to suppress something. Moreover, besides C.I. Hui, there were 2 other people who entered the mysterious water palace before me. One of them was a woman who came here to see if the person she was looking for was suppressed under the immortal artifact. Haha, that's a false rumor. Sky Dragon laughed. That immortal artifact wasn't suppressing anything or anyone. Think about it, if that immortal artifact was suppressing something, could the person she was looking for be suppressed there? If the person she found could be suppressed there, could the immortal artifact still be called an immortal artifact? That immortal artifact was brought here to condense a relic for Manjushri Bodhisattva's predecessor. When Manjushri Bodhisattva's friend joined forces with him to set up the ancient formation, they also built the mysterious water palace. After an unknown number of years, that expert from the Tao sect returned to the Dark Water Palace and entered into closed-door cultivation for 10,000 years before he ascended. I was by his side when he ascended. Unfortunately, he headed to the Tao sect's immortal world and not the Buddhist sect's Buddhist kingdom. That's why I couldn't find a place I was familiar with even after searching for a long time. After that person ascended, for some unknown reason, he left the mystic artifact, no, the immortal artifact, in the profound water palace. Perhaps it was left for a fated person. Little monk Gu Zhen, are you the fated one? At this point, Sky Dragon chuckled. How strange. Who knows how many people had entered the profound water palace over the years? Forget the profound water palace. Even the longevity palace had quite a number of people. However, they had either died here or returned with broken halberds. Not a single one of them had obtained this item. Little monk, you're really lucky to have met this old man here. Based on this old man's previous experience of using this item, you can easily take it away. But, little monk, don't be greedy. You can use this item in your current life. You'll have to return it to me when you return to the West. This old man might have other uses for it. Haha, senior, you think too much. Gu Zhen laughed. Even if it's an immortal artifact, it belongs to the Tao sect. I'm the Buddhist sect's Dharma protector. What can I do with it? It's up to you. If you want to use it, take it. If you don't want to use it, just put it somewhere far away after this old man condenses your Sarira. Sky Dragon was getting impatient. This is your own choice. It has nothing to do with me. Yes, I understand. Gu Zhen's doubts were all gone. Sky Dragon opened his mouth again and a thumb-sized jade pearl flew out. He said with a smile, this is the secret technique to control the mystic artifact. That person told Manjushri about it. Now, this old man will tell you. Not to mention the Buddhist sect's divine ability, this Buddhist secret technique can also control the immortal world's mystic artifacts. Gu Zhen took the jade pearl and looked at it. The jade pearl seemed to be able to suck in his soul. He frowned and said, Senior, how do I use this? This is a Buddhist treasure refined by Manjushri. You only need to use your Buddhist sense to check it. Sky Dragon said with a smile. Gu Zhen tried to release his Buddhist sense. Sure enough, after a moment, Gu Zhen's face showed surprise. He asked curiously, Senior, is this enough? Isn't this too simple? How would this old man know? Sky Dragon smiled bitterly. This was used by Manjushri in the past. But he was in the stationary spirit realm. You're only in the Lotus Formation realm. I'm afraid you'll have to use more psyche power. Of course, if you can't get the mystic artifact this time, then this old man can't condense your Sarira. You can try again when you're in the stationary spirit realm. Yes, I understand. I'll try. If it doesn't work, then I'll have to wait for the next time. Gu Zhen had already lost his confidence. The record in the Jade Pearl was too simple. He felt that it must be done by a Buddhist master in the stationary spirit realm. Sky Dragon saw this and comforted him. It's okay, Guzhan. Go and try. Give yourself some hope. Maybe you'll get a surprise? Yes, this disciple will go now. Guzhan forced himself to stay alert. He was so close to eating a delicious vegetarian meal. Suddenly, someone asked him for money. But he didn't have a single copper coin in his 100 treasures pouch. Sigh, poor little monk. Sky Dragon sighed. This old man shouldn't have given you so much hope. Sky Dragon's figure disappeared into the jade pearl. The jade liquid in the longevity lamp began to rotate. The faint flame also rotated at the same time. Not long after, a small whirlpool appeared in the jade liquid. The whirlpool became bigger and bigger, gradually reaching the bottom of the lamp. At the same time, the flame gradually condensed into a swastika character in the air. Waves of faint Sanskrit chants spun faster and faster. Go! A mantra that sounded both Taoist and Buddhist rang out. The swastika character rushed into the whirlpool and hit the bottom of the longevity lamp. Hum! The bottom of the longevity lamp emitted a slight rumbling sound. The layers of clouds under the lamp seemed to have come to life and floated to the top of the pillar. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. There were 81 consecutive sounds. Then, the sound of a bell rang in Guzhan's ears. Golden light flashed in front of Guzhan and an entrance appeared on the pillar. A long flight of stairs appeared at the entrance. Go. Once you get that magic item, you'll be able to condense a relic. Sky Dragon's voice was a bit hoarse. He didn't show his head from the jade pearl. Guzhan was full of joy. He landed at the entrance of the pillar and bowed. This disciple understands. This disciple will be back soon. Guzhan waited for a while but didn't hear Sky Dragon's voice. He knew that Sky Dragon was too tired and didn't want to wait any longer. He looked at the stairs and quickly walked down. After Guzhan left, the longevity hall regained its tranquility. The longevity lamp continued to burn dimly. It was as though Guzhan had never appeared in the first place. There were so many stairs under Guzhan's feet that he couldn't see the end of them. However, he was in such a good mood that he didn't care how far the stairs were. He knew that as long as he walked down step by step, there would be an end to the stairs. At the end, he would be able to fulfill his wish of condensing a relic in his lifetime. According to Guzhan's knowledge, condensing a relic was very simple for arhats who practiced Buddhist magic because the relic was the foundation of their cultivation. As long as they could step into the dust realm, they would be able to condense a relic. In the future, their Rugu and Bright Pool realms could be reflected in the relic. Different Buddhist mantras had different effects. Some could transform into different golden bodies in different realms, and some could trigger different Buddhist divine abilities in different realms, such as heavenly vision, heavenly hearing, and so on. For ordinary monks who didn't practice Buddhist magic, they could also condense a relic if they were proficient in Buddhist Dharma and Zen theory. However, this kind of relic could only be condensed after the monk had passed away. In other words, after the monk had finished his mortal life. The condensation of this kind of relic depended on Buddhist secret magic. The monk couldn't do it by himself. Of course, this was common sense. There were exceptions. Occasionally, there would be senior monks who were proficient in Buddhist Dharma but not Buddhist magic who condensed a relic. However, Guzhan also knew that for a guardian like him, even if he was in the Lotus realm, he couldn't condense a relic. This was because he had too many evil creatures in his hands. The resentment of the creatures he killed was enough to drown his relic, making it impossible for him to go further on the path of Buddhist magic. For this reason, in the Buddhist magic, the mantras for the guardians to practice did not allow the bodhisattvas to condense a relic from the beginning. This prevented the karma of killing creatures from affecting the cultivation of later generations. If he wanted to condense a relic, there was only one way. That was to ask a Buddhist master to condense a relic for him like ordinary monks when he passed away. However, the possibility of this kind of relic was too small. He didn't practice Buddhist Dharma and couldn't eliminate the karma. The resentment of the creatures who died in his hands would not only destroy his relic, but also implicate the senior monk who performed the magic. No guardian would ask others to do this, and no one would do this for a guardian. These were all known by the guardians at the beginning of their cultivation. However, the sky dragon who had just descended from the Buddhist kingdom gave Guzhan hope. The Manjushri Bodhisattva who was also a guardian in his previous life gave Guzhan hope. The sky dragon used a Taoist fairy weapon to condense a relic for Guzhan when he was alive. Then, He used a Buddhist formation to gather the power of faith to eliminate the karma of the relic and increase the psyche power. This eliminated the drawbacks of the guardians who couldn't condense a relic from several aspects. To Gu Zhen, this was reasonable. Moreover, this method would not affect Gu Zhen's current cultivation. Even if Sky Dragon made a mistake, this mistake would affect the future. It was not like Gu Zhen who couldn't bring the cultivation of this life to the samsara robber as a guardian. Therefore, Gu Zhen didn't doubt the possibility of the Sky Dragon's incredible secret magic. Chapter 34-47. In particular, in Gu Zhen's heart, the Sky Dragon had accompanied Manjushri Saraira in the longevity lamp for more than 100,000 years. The imperceptible influence between him and the Saraira was quite profound. Gu Zhen did not believe that the Sky Dragon would do anything wrong. Because if the Sky Dragon did anything wrong, how could the Saraira have allowed it to live until now? The only thing that made Gu Zhen feel uneasy was the fairy weapon of the mysterious water palace. However, the fairy weapon was related to his Saraira and had nothing to do with the Sky Dragon. Even if the Sky Dragon was suppressed by the fairy weapon, it was still the fairy weapon of the Taoist sect. The Sky Dragon was also the Sky Dragon of the Buddhist kingdom. If he took away the fairy weapon and released the Sky Dragon, wouldn't it be a great merit? When he thought of this, Gu Zhen, who originally did not have any good impression of the Tao sect, removed even the last trace of it. He raised both of his hands into the air and appeared to be stretching his waist. Then, he pulled himself together and swiftly descended the stairs. He seemed to be able to see the scene of him, who had condensed the Saraira, attaining nirvana 100,000 years later. He did not know how many steps he walked down, but when he turned a corner, he saw a small arched bridge in front of him. Under the bridge, streams of extremely pure water-based yuan qi of heaven and earth condensed into water and flowed. The other end of the bridge was hidden in a blue halo, which Gu Zhen could not see with his naked eyes. Even his Buddhist consciousness could not leave his body. However, Gu Zhen knew that this place must be the real mysterious water palace. He felt an inexplicable excitement in his heart. He reached out and pinched the jade bead in his tattered monk robe. He quickened his pace and walked across the bridge. Gu Zhen's figure easily passed through the blue halo. His eyes flickered slightly. When he saw the scene in front of him clearly, he could not help but be shocked. As Xiao Hua's consciousness emerged from the space, he had the intention of trying to use the technique that Xiao Hua had comprehended. However, he also knew that he couldn't risk his own safety in the perilous profound water palace. Even if he managed to escape from the profound water palace, he couldn't risk the collapse of his nascent soul to try such a powerful technique with his nascent soul cultivation base at the early nascent soul stage. He could only wait for his nascent soul to fuse with his physical body and reach the body integration stage before he could try. Due to these misgivings, Xiao Hua resentfully stopped and helplessly urged Xiao Gua to take all the spirit fruits and spirit grasses into his space. Only then was he able to slightly alleviate the regret in his heart. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had only just reached the nascent soul realm. How could he know that his physical body was that of a demigod? Moreover, it was formed from the flesh and blood of a demonic phoenix. His nascent soul was a Taoist spiritual nascent soul. The two were completely unrelated, and they were even two different paths of cultivation. How could they possibly fuse together? How could he have reached the body integration stage? If Xiao Hua knew about it now, he would probably move the entire profound water palace away to comfort his wounded heart. Little monk, come quickly, come quickly. Just when Xiao Hua was trying to take advantage of the situation, Xian's surprised voice came from afar, as if she had discovered something special. Alas, benefactress. Xiao Hua raised his head from the spirit grasses and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Can you not be so loud? This little monk still hasn't finished his business here. What you saw, this little monk will see it sooner or later. It won't make a difference in a little bit of time. Little monk, are you coming or not? If you don't leave, then I'll leave by myself. If you can't leave in a while, then don't blame me. Xian sneered and didn't say anything else. Io, Xiao Gua, you have to work harder here. Wait until you find a way out, Xiao. This little monk will immediately call you over. Xiao Hua saw that there were still a lot of spirit grasses that he hadn't plundered yet. He was reluctant to part with them and hastily ran in the direction of Xian's voice. When Xiao Hua could see Xian clearly, he naturally saw the things in front of her. When he saw these things clearly, Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. Because in front of Xian was a huge pile of 10 zhang tall bluestone. These bluestones seemed to be a whole piece, but if one looked carefully, there were some faint cracks in it. Moreover, these cracks were very strange. They weren't particularly neat and were even extremely distorted. When these distortions fell into Xiaohua's eyes, they gave him a very familiar feeling. This is... Xiaohua slightly narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, a kind of unimaginable feeling emerged from the bottom of his heart. This is the Dao Sect's rune. That's right, the lines on the pile of bluestone were actually the runes commonly used by the Dao Sect. What kind of formation is this big bluestone pile? Xiaohua pulled his gaze away from the lines on the bluestone. He looked up and down, then looked left and right. The bluestone pile wasn't just in front of Xiaohua. There were also piles on the left and right. Moreover, it seemed that there were more in the distance, even endless. As for Xian, she seemed to have just come out from the pile of bluestone. She was looking at Xiaohua with a smile. He didn't know what she was thinking. What kind of formation is this? Is it what you're looking for? Xiaohua probed. Xian slightly shook her head. There was some disappointment on her face as she replied, "This isn't what I'm looking for. However, as for what it is, I can't be sure." "Why don't you take a look? Do you know what it is?" "What can this little monk know?" "Aren't you teasing this little monk?" Xiaohua slightly frowned. He knew that Xian was testing him again, so he immediately shirked his responsibility. "Little monk, you take a look first. I'll go look elsewhere." Xian saw Xiaohua frown, but she smiled and said, "If you have any clues, call me back." Okay. Xiaohua didn't understand the meaning of Xian's words. Xiaohua was still busy at the back. Wasn't he lacking time right now? Therefore he casually agreed. After Xian left, Xiaohua quickly walked back to the place where Xian came out. Sure enough, behind the bluestone pile, there were still some bluestone piles. These bluestone piles were taller and bigger than the bluestone piles behind Xiaohua. Looking at the huge bluestone formation in front of him, Xiaohua scratched his head. Right now, he couldn't release his divine sense, so how could he see the entire bluestone formation? Could it be that Xian, that little girl, can use the so-called golden pupils? Xiaohua secretly pondered. However, when his gaze once again fell on the bluestone piles, Xiaohua subconsciously raised his head and knocked it on his head. Damn it, being a cultivator is too stupid. Without divine sense, I can't fly. Don't I still have martial arts? Wouldn't it be fine if I just climb up the bluestone piles? Hee, Xian. Seems like she also has a unique skill. Immediately, Xiaohua quickly walked into the bluestone formation. Only when he came across a bluestone pile that was dozens of feet high did he stop. He used his hands and feet to climb up the bluestone pile. Hiss, when Xiaohua reached the top of the bluestone pile, he looked around and subconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air. This bluestone formation was different from the one outside. It didn't have the kind of restriction that could block people's vision. Xiaohua's gaze could actually see the entire bluestone formation. This bluestone formation was really too big, so big that it exceeded Xiaohua's imagination. With just a glance, Xiaohua already knew that this bluestone formation was at least several mu in size. The bluestone piles, big and small, high and low, were innumerable. The bluestone piles seemed to be scattered without any pattern. However, when Xiaohua's gaze swept across the bluestone piles, he could see that the entire bluestone formation was a whole. It was very obvious that this was a huge formation. What kind of formation is this? Xiaohua looked at the familiar runes and an indescribable feeling appeared in his heart. It was as if he had been studying this formation all this time. However, for a moment, he actually couldn't remember what it was. I can't see it, but how could Xian see it? Xiaohua was somewhat bewildered. This little girl actually said she wanted to leave? A transmission formation. This is a great transmission formation. How could there be such a big transmission formation here? Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly understood. This was the transmission formation hidden in the Grand Cosmos teleportation token. The reason why Xiaohua didn't recognize it before was that the transmission formations he had seen before were not big. The largest transmission formation should be the one he saw in the Sky Patrol City. That transmission formation was only a few 100 feet long. How could it be compared to the several mu in size? Any random bluestone pile was probably bigger than that transmission formation, right? In an instant, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. He was even more excited than when he saw the large pile of spiritual herbs. Compared to this huge transmission formation, those spiritual herbs were, cough cough, naturally still spiritual herbs. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua called out almost casually. However, as soon as he said that, he realized that this wasn't his space. How could the green-robed Xiao Hua come out? Immediately, Xiao Hua sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. The information about the transmission formation flowed through his mind little by little. After a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua opened his eyes. At this time, there was a trace of clarity in his eyes. Almost without hesitation, he entered the space with his mind. With a wave of his hand, the Cosmos teleportation token appeared in his hand. Then he smiled and said, "Where is fellow Taoist?" Fellow Taoist just left. What's the matter now? The green-robed Xiao Hua appeared in front of Jade Archive Xiao Hua very lazily. The expression on his face was as lively as the soul cultivator Xiao Hua's. Would fellow Taoist be willing to go out with I? Jade Archive Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Very strangely, the green-robed Xiao Hua's face suddenly showed a kind of excitement. Even Jade Archive Xiao Hua was very excited. Didn't fellow Taoist promise to let that person go out first? The green-robed Xiao Hua pointed up with his hand. Obviously, he was talking about the soul cultivator Xiao Hua. Jade Archive Xiao Hua smiled and said, "That was then and this is now. Today is fellow Taoist's turn to work. Naturally, I'll ask fellow Taoist to go out for a walk." Good, the green-robed Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, "I'll listen to fellow Taoist's instructions. Come out with I." Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded and pulled the green-robed Xiao Hua out of the space with his left hand. Chapter 34-48. When Xiao Hua opened his eyes again, the nascent soul in his lower dantian had already crawled out from the top of his head. To Xiao Hua's surprise, although he could sense the nascent soul's existence, he couldn't see it with his naked eyes. In other words, his nascent soul was the same as the golden core in his lower dantian. It couldn't be sensed by others and could only be sensed by himself. However, when the invisible nascent soul emerged from the top of Xiao Hua's head, its eyes were far less agile than when it was in the void. Even its limbs were stiff. Its small head turned left and right in a daze, just like an ordinary child's doll. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua could naturally sense this situation. He asked with a smile, "Are you not used to it?" "I'll let you know." The nascent soul said softly. "Indeed. This body is like a prison, making I feel very uncomfortable. I don't have the freedom I had before." "Actually," Xiao Hua said with a smile, "the ancients have a good saying. The people in the city look at the beautiful scenery outside the city and think of all kinds of ways to get out. The people outside the city look at the prosperous life in the city and think of all kinds of ways to get in. This city gate is the clash of two different ideas. Fellow Taoist, you have a good life inside. The world is vast, and you can do whatever you want. But here, although there is a lot of vitality, there are also many restrictions. Fellow Taoist, you can't do whatever you want. Fellow Taoist, you have a good life now. This nascent soul is condensed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and I's body is far inferior to it. In the future, you don't have to envy I's freedom anymore." "Hee, of course I know this." The nascent soul grinned and stretched its limbs. "I will go and see what's so special about this teleportation array." "Don't!" Xiao Hua turned pale with fright and hurriedly shouted, "Fellow Taoist, you must not act rashly. Not to mention that this nascent soul has just condensed and can't withstand your torment. Even if you can ride the clouds, you can't just walk around. This is a dangerous place in the profound water palace. Who knows what dangers lie inside? If something swallows this nascent soul, or if it is damaged, you and I will cry but have no tears." "All right," the nascent soul said resentfully, "if I can't fly freely, why did fellow Taoist call I out? Isn't it the same as you looking at it? Fellow Taoist, I'm doing all this for you. You've been working hard to refine artifacts, concoct pills, and comprehend cultivation methods. Now that you have a chance to come out for a breather, I thought of you first. Forget it. The nascent soul waved his hand. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You just want me to see how to set up a teleportation array, and you want me to refine the materials for the array for you. At the very least, I can help you activate the teleportation array. Hee, fellow Taoist is wise. When Xiao Hua hears that the nascent soul didn't call himself I, but I instead, he knows that this guy isn't unhappy. He giggles and jumps down from the pile of bluestones. Using a lightness technique, he rushes towards the teleportation formation. Not long after Xiao Hua's figure disappeared, on another pile of bluestones, Xion's not very graceful figure quietly appeared. Xion's vigorous figure was actually not much inferior to Xiao Hua's. Looking at Xiao Hua's back that was like a pellet, Xion's face revealed a very surprised expression. She muttered to herself in an embarrassed and angry voice. Which family does this little monk belong to? Why haven't I seen him before? I don't think I've seen this kind of lightness technique before either. After speaking, Xion no longer chased after Xiao Hua. Instead, like a butterfly fluttering in the wind, she descended from the pile of bluestones and headed in another direction. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua didn't see Xion, but the nascent soul above his head did. He reminded in a low voice, "Your little tail was peeping at you from behind just now. Be careful." And whatever. Xiao Hua slightly tilted his head. It's unknown whether he saw or not, but he said with a smile, "After leaving this profound water palace, I will return to the hidden immortal continent. I will no longer be some little monk Tipu. Who cares who she is? She can do whatever she wants. AI, you should know that women are very troublesome." The nascent soul sighed in a very mature and prudent manner. Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. He probed, "Fellow Taoist, how did you know?" Haha. The nascent soul laughed loudly. He used his hand to hit Xiao Hua's head and shouted, "You know. I naturally know." Humph. Xiao Hua heard this and his face immediately turned green. Fellow Taoist is angry? The nascent soul laughed. Fellow Taoist is I is fellow Taoist. How can it be the same? Xiao Hua muttered. However, he had to admit that the nascent soul was right. Fellow Taoist. Just when Xiao Hua was somewhat distracted, the nascent soul cried out, "Quickly look over there." Following the nascent soul's voice, Xiao Hua naturally looked to his right in front of him without the nascent soul's finger. The empty space, which was about 1,000 feet in size, was in a complete mess. The originally orderly piles of bluestone were now scattered on the ground. The huge bluestone had also been smashed, and pieces of it the size of a fist were scattered all over the place. Xiao Hua's face was somewhat gloomy. He only took a rough look and asked, "How long will it take to refine these materials?" The nascent soul didn't answer Xiao Hua's question. Instead he asked, "Fellow Taoist, even if this place is intact and the entire teleportation formation is intact, are you sure you can activate it?" "Why not?" Xiao Hua asked curiously. "Don't tell me you really don't know?" The nascent soul asked again. Xiao Hua patted his head and bitterly smiled. "I forgot. I don't have enough spirit stones." Of course, activating such a large teleportation formation not only required Xiao Hua's magic power, but also spirit stones. Xiao Hua frequently bid at the auction in the Copper Pillar Nation, looking rather arrogant. However, he relied on spirit herbs. In fact, Xiao Hua had left most of his spirit stones in the Myriad Thunder Valley when he left the Imperial Thunder Sect. He didn't have many spirit stones on hand. However, when he arrived at the Profound Water Palace, he could only rely on spirit stones. He didn't have any spirit herbs left. "Does that little girl have any spirit stones?" the nascent soul asked. "Let's take a look first." Xiao Hua said dejectedly, "If you and I can repair this teleportation formation, it won't be too late to find her." And the nascent soul didn't say anything else. Xiao Hua wasn't just looking around aimlessly. He ran deeper into the teleportation formation's core while studying the real teleportation formation with the nascent soul. He compared what he saw with his own comprehension. Therefore, his speed was quite fast at first, but towards the end, he became slower and slower. It wasn't until an hour later that he arrived at the center of the teleportation formation. An empty space that was several hundred feet wide. To Xiao Hua's disappointment, this place was also a mess. Fist-sized fragments could be seen everywhere. Obviously, this teleportation formation couldn't be used at all. Fellow Taoist, you and I can now lay down the teleportation formation. We can also refine the materials used for the teleportation formation. How long do you think it will take to repair this formation? Xiao Hua looked at the ground and asked in a low voice. The nascent soul smiled. Do you still need I to answer? You already have the answer in your heart. Forget it, Xiao Hua almost cried. He waved his hand and said, looks like our luck isn't good. Not to mention that we don't have any spirit stones. Just repairing this teleportation formation is far away. Let's go and ask Benefactor Xin if she has any spirit stones. If she doesn't, we have to find another way out. After saying that, Xiao Hua turned around and was about to leave. Don't go! The nascent soul was anxious. Although these materials are already broken, they are all rare materials. As long as we refine them a little, they can be used again. How can you ignore them? Hee, that's true. Xiao Hua laughed. His nascent soul was the same as him, greedy for money. When it saw a little bit of advantage, it would take advantage of it. Moreover, was the advantage in front of him small? Xiao Hua released his mind and stored these fragments into the space. The nascent soul above his head suggested again. Fellow Taoist, in my opinion, you should go and ask Benefactor Xin. If she doesn't have any spirit stones, we can just move the entire teleportation formation away. Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said, that's exactly what I want. It's decided then. After saying that, Xiao Hua hurriedly went to find Xin. The nascent soul had been outside for a long time and was also very tired. The green-robed Xiao Hua had no choice but to return to the space early. Little monk, did you find anything? Xin had already returned to the blue stone of the teleportation formation. Seeing Xiao Hua using his lightness skill, her expression didn't change at all, as if she didn't see him at all. Xiao Hua flew into the sky and also landed on the blue stone. He shook his head and said, I found something, but I'm afraid Benefactor will be disappointed. What did you find? Xin asked with interest. Xiao Hua didn't have the patience to beat around the bush with her and asked directly, let's not talk about what we found first. Benefactor, do you have any top-grade spirit stones in your Chenkuan bag? Yes. Xin nodded. How many? Xiao Hua was delighted and hurriedly asked. There should be more than 1,000. Xin said in a low voice. Then she looked in front and asked, could this be a Taoist sex teleportation formation? It needs spirit stones to activate? Sigh, Xiao Hua sighed and nodded. Benefactor Xin is right. This is a Taoist sex teleportation formation. If there are no accidents, it should lead to the outside of the profound water palace. However, this teleportation formation is now damaged. Moreover, you and I don't have enough spirit stones, so this teleportation formation is no different from not existing. Little monk, you have good eyesight. You actually know about teleportation formations. Xin mocked. The teleportation formations of the 3 continents were destroyed long ago. I really didn't expect that a little monk from the Tantric sect would know about it. I don't know what to say. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and ignored her mockery. Instead, he asked, Benefactor, did you find anything else? Yes, Xin snorted and pointed in the distance. There's an entrance to a hole there. It might be the real profound water palace. Chapter 34-49. Oh, okay. Xiao Hua glanced at her and nodded. Benefactress, please wait for a moment. This little monk will go with you in a while. And in a while? Why? Xin frowned. Are you still going to plunder the spirit herbs? You still haven't finished after such a long time? Haha, of course not. Xiao Hua laughed and jumped down from the bluestone. He walked to the pile of bluestones and hugged a bluestone, shouting, Rise! Rumble! The boulder let out a rumbling sound and disappeared in Xiao Hua's hands. Xin, who was not far away, was dumbstruck. What are you doing? What can this little monk do? Xiao Hua smiled. These blue stones are all trash. This little monk's small temple in the snowy mountain has been in disrepair for a long time and needs to be repaired. This little monk sees that these blue stones are not bad, so I might as well take them away. It can be considered recycling trash. You. Xian raised her hand and pointed at Xiao Hua. She had never seen a monk as stingy and greedy as Xiao Hua. After saying you a few times, she weakly said, "Can't you buy some stones and the like near the Great Snow Mountain?" Cough cough. My tantric sect's small business doesn't have any extra money. Xiao Hua cried. Now this little monk is the only one left. This little monk has no choice but to be careful. I have primeval stones here. Can I give them to your tantric sect? Xian shouted in exasperation. Don't. This little monk is poor but ambitious. I won't accept a reward without any effort. Xiao Hua deftly put away the blue stone as he said, "What's more, I've taken your primordial stones. If I encounter any danger in a while, how can I not care? You go die." Xian was so angry that she jumped up and down. She couldn't help but curse. She jumped down from the blue stone and ran far away. Xian only stopped in front of a 10-zhong tall building. Her qi and blood slowly calmed down. Only now did Xian think, what's wrong with me? This little monk clearly had the intention to take away the transportation array. Why can't I see it? Does his temple need some big blue stones? Even if you want blue stones, don't you have plenty of them in the Great Snow Mountain? Xian was a little stunned. She looked at the indistinct transportation array in the distance, then looked at the 10-zhong tall tower not far away. She suddenly felt a little cold, and couldn't help but tighten her palace dress. An inexplicable regret rose from the bottom of her heart. She raised her head again, and looked at the distant sky, her gaze a little lonely. After a full 2 hours, Xiao Hua, who was beaming with joy, walked over with quick steps from afar. From afar, he said with a smile, "I've made benefactress wait for a long time. I'm truly sorry, truly sorry." Nothing. At this moment, Xian had already regained her cold demeanor. She said faintly, "This one congratulates the little monk Tip on returning with a rewarding journey." Xiao Hua hastily put his palms together and said with a smile, "After the small temple is repaired, Xiao Seng will definitely invite New Tanyue and Ci Hui Shixiang to come to the small temple and have some spiritual fruits and spiritual tea. Oh, that's right. There's a pool in the small temple. Not only is the scenery beautiful, but the water in the pool is also scalding hot. If Tanyu is willing to do me the honor. How about?" At this point, Xiao Hua felt somewhat embarrassed. What's with the pool? Why did I invite her in front of Xian? What's the meaning of this? Fortunately, Xian acted as if she didn't hear him. She waved her hand and said, "Let's talk about this after we leave the profound water palace." Xiao Hua hastily shrunk his neck and said with a smile, "Yes, Xiao Sing understands." The balcony in front of them was very strange. It looked as if it extended out from the palace. However, the other end of the balcony was covered by the blue light of the sky. It was as if there was an extra section that appeared out of thin air. What was special was that other than the white jade stairs in front of Xian, there was also a building above the stairs that looked like a corridor. In the middle of the building, there was a rather large bulge that looked a little out of place. However, no one would dare to underestimate any strange place in the dangerous profound water palace. As soon as Xiao Hua set foot on the steps, he had already felt somewhat uneasy. He had a feeling that there would be some trouble inside the balcony. New Tanyue. Xiao Hua couldn't help but whisper, "Is there no other entrance besides this balcony nearby? If there is, Xiao Seng can go look for it himself." Xian didn't turn her head. She said coldly, "When Xiao Sing found this place with great difficulty, some people were still filling their pockets. Do you think some people have the right to ask where to go?" Of course not. Xiao Hua said vehemently. "This is all thanks to Xian Tanyue. Who dares to say no?" Humph. Xian didn't expect Xiao Hua to answer like this. She snorted coldly and said no more. However, after Xiao Hua took a few more steps, he thought of something and hurriedly whispered, "By the way, Xiao Sang has made a strange discovery. Would New Tanyue like to hear it?" If Xiao Hua had only said that he had a question, or if he had something to say, Xian might have blocked him with a sentence, not allowing Xiaohua to speak. However, Xiaohua said that it was a strange discovery. Xin couldn't help but say, "Let's hear it." Did Xin Tanua notice it? We're not the first to arrive at the profound water palace. There must be many others before us. Of course. Xin replied grumpily. The ancient array under the Sage River isn't unknown to begin with. It's just that many people come in and few go out. It's long become a dangerous place. Very few people have come here in the last 1,000 years. But why? Xiaohua's words exposed his true nature. Those who died here didn't leave their Qiankuan bags? Humph, you're only thinking of taking advantage of others. Xin became angry again. Her voice was a bit loud. Didn't you see the river water in front of the profound water palace? Presumably, when the river water flooded the profound water palace, this place was also flooded. Even if some people died here, their corpses were washed into the Sage River by the river water. If you want to find them, you can go to the bottom of the river to look. That. Xiao Seng was just saying that it was strange. Xiaohua muttered, "Why are you so angry?" Xin rolled her eyes at him and asked, "What are the bones for?" Seeing that Xin didn't regard him as an outsider, Xiaohua was a bit puzzled. He shrugged and replied indifferently, "Xiao Sing really doesn't know." "Humph, I've never seen a monk as greedy as you in the Pure Land world." Xin lectured him with a bit of resentment. Monks rely on their feet to walk, and those who eat rely on offerings. How can they use money? You got so many spiritual herbs. Alas, I won't talk about it. At this point, Xiaohua didn't say anything. Xin also felt that she was too long-winded. She was really more talkative than Ci Hui, so she hurriedly shut up. The two of them walked a few steps and reached the top of the stairs. They saw another passageway with blue stone walls. Xiaohua felt a bit awkward and probed, "I wonder how Senior Brother Ci Hui and Grandmaster Guzhan are doing." "They're all eminent monks. You don't need to worry about them." Xin warned Xiaohua in a low voice as she looked around vigilantly. She had already drawn her flexible sword from her waist. Yes, Xiao Sing knows. Even Xiaohua didn't seem to understand the meaning of "they" in Xin's words. After walking for a long time, seeing that the passage was quiet and only the footsteps of the two people could be heard, Xin's heart became more and more uneasy. She couldn't help but scold, "Xiao Seng, where's your Buddhist treasure? Didn't you have a stick in the passage before?" Xiaohua had always wanted to hide his identity. When he heard Xin mention the wishful wand, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out a magic wand and said, "It's here." Devil tool? Who would have thought that Xin would recognize the origin of the magic wand at a glance? She raised her eyebrows and said in surprise, "You? Who are you?" "New Tan Yu." Xiaohua didn't know how many times he had heard Xin ask him who he was. He bitterly smiled and said, "This is a stick. You can call it a devil tool or a Buddhist tool. In this poor monk's hands, it's a sharp weapon to eliminate evil and protect Buddha." Xin slightly clenched her teeth. Her eyes had an indescribable meaning. She stared at Xiaohua and said, "You didn't learn anything from Ci Hui. This ability of yours has the tendency of the student surpassing the master." Xiaohua was stunned. He blinked his big eyes, but the confusion in his eyes was even thicker than when he was small. However, before Xiaohua could think more, the two people had already arrived at the bulge in the middle of the building. Looking from the inside of the passage, it was a circular dome. The dome was the same as the passage, blue in color. However, within this blue color, there were some densely packed silvery white colors. These silvery white colors flickered slightly like the stars in the sky. It looked very beautiful. Xiaohua glanced at the sky and then looked forward. Xin was different. After glancing at the sky, she didn't want to look away. She didn't even move her feet. She stared at the sky and her eyes were filled with joy. Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled, but he didn't disturb her. He walked a few steps forward until he was in front of Xin's head. It wasn't until they were almost out of the dome that he opened his mouth and said, "New Tan Yu, it's better to go out and look at the stars. There's no moon here, and there's no one to accompany you." "How boring." "Ai, that's right. Every day, I see thousands of stars surging endlessly. Every star is like a lively person. I envy them very much. Their life is different every day. It's as colorful as their starlight. How I want to be like them, free and unrestrained. Exine let out a long sigh and said softly. Rather than saying it to Xiao Hua, it was better to say it was her own self-pity. Ai, pitiful child. Xiao Hua naturally knew that Exine, a woman born in the world of Confucian cultivators, had always been restrained. This kind of sadness of admiring flowers and playing with the moon was natural. He only curled his lips and expressed a bit of sympathy. Chapter 34:50. Exine's eyes were a little blurred. She vaguely felt that the stars were moving slowly, but she did not care. However, after a while, Exine suddenly woke up and hurriedly looked again. Sure enough, the thousands of silver dots were moving. Exine was stunned for a moment, but the faces of the silver dots were vaguely visible. They were strange insects flashing with silver brilliance. The strange insect was the size of a fist, and its whole body was flat like a gourd. The front half was a head, and the back half was a body. The head was the same size as the body, and there were two 2-inch long wings on the body. On the head of the strange insect, there were long fangs, and the fangs were shining with a pale golden brilliance. The two big eyes that took up half of the head did not have pupils, and were like black skin. On the back of the strange insect, there were many small silver spots, which looked very beautiful. As the strange insect flew closer, the loud buzzing sound was also heard. Exine's eyes flashed with a golden light, and she immediately cried out, "Little monk, let's retreat quickly. This is the elemental devouring insect." Xiao Hua naturally also heard the strange insect's buzzing sound. His heart trembled, and he hastily retreated to Exine's side. In the span of a few breaths, the so-called elemental eating insect had already landed about 30 meters above Exine's head. Spirit-devouring insect? Xiao Hua's gaze swept over, and he immediately understood. Although the shape of the spirit-devouring insect had changed in the Pure Land world, its original appearance had not changed. How could Xiao Hua not recognize it? This is the rare elemental devouring insect in the 3 continents. It likes to devour Numa. No matter what Buddhist treasure or imperial weapon it is, it will be eaten by them. Exine's figure also hurriedly retreated to the entrance of the pavilion, and she explained, even for us cultivators, whether it is the Buddha or the Confucian cultivator, the Saraira and genuine Qi are the elemental devouring insect's favorite. Although Xiao Hua had not seen the spirit-devouring bugs with his own eyes, he had heard Fairy Hong Xia and Li Zongbao talk about the power of the spirit-devouring sword formation in the Dawn Rain continent. Just a few hundred spirit-devouring bugs could defeat hundreds of thousands of Dao sect cultivators. The power of the spirit-devouring bugs was evident. At this time, thousands of elemental devouring insects appeared in the passage. Regardless of whether these elemental devouring insects were spirit-swallowing insects or not, Exine, who had always been calm, was a little flustered. How could Xiao Hua not know that he had hit a nail on the head? Xiao Hua hurriedly retreated and followed behind Exine. The passage was too narrow, it was hard to dodge. Xiao Hua was afraid that he would only be able to make it to the open space outside the passage. When did the entrance to the passage close? Exine ran madly for a while, and suddenly found that the entrance had turned into a dark green stone wall. She was very anxious. However, now that the stone wall had become a hole, even Exine herself did not know where the entrance was. Get out of the way! Xiao Hua stole a glance at the spirit-devouring bugs flying behind him and said anxiously, "Let me see what's going on." Exine was a little bit scratching her ears and cheeks. She did not know where to start, so she could only get out of the way. Xiao Hua walked in front of Exine and made a seal with both hands. With a loud shout, the Buddha seal fell on his forehead and the delusion breaker Dharma eye slowly opened. Heaven's eye? Exine's eyes were a little straight. She had always doubted Xiao Hua's identity, but she did not expect Xiao Hua to be proficient in the heaven's eye of the 6 senses of Buddhism. Swish! Just when Exine was puzzled, there was a sound like raindrops behind her. Exine hurriedly looked back again, only to see thousands of elemental devouring bugs swarming over like frightened bees. Xian looked at Xiao Hua's slightly short figure and gritted her teeth. She threw the soft sword in her hand and made a sword sign. The soft sword immediately turned into a waterfall and rushed toward the swarm of bugs. Woo! Like a gust of wind, where the soft sword passed, dozens of elemental devouring bugs fell to the ground. Except for a few elemental devouring bugs that were still struggling to fly, the other elemental devouring bugs were dying on the ground and could no longer fly. Seeing this, Xian, whose heart had been in her mouth for a long time, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Obviously, these elemental devouring bugs were different from the rumors. Little monk, don't worry, take your time. Xian said with a smile. The elemental devouring bugs here seem to be different from what I thought. They are not very difficult to deal with. At this moment, Xiao Hua didn't have the time to pay attention to Xian's words. In his eyes, there was a vast ocean of blue. Within this ocean of blue, there were many runes flowing like water. From time to time, these runes would collide with each other and unexpectedly produce an even stronger brilliance. Within this brilliance, new runes would appear. What kind of Dharma array is this? It can actually move and change on its own? Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. At this time, he was no longer in a hurry to find the entrance in this seamless Dharma array. He hurriedly looked at other places. The more Xiao Hua looked, the more alarmed he became. This Dharma array was far beyond his imagination. The entire passage was a complete whole. The countless water-based world energy of heaven and earth seemed to be endlessly pouring into it. As the world energy flowed, the runes of the entire passage's Dharma array also changed. Xiao Hua's previous method of inserting the jade talisman into the Dharma array to break the Dharma array could not be used here. Moreover, when faced with such a strange Dharma array, Xiao Hua had no confidence in finding the flaw of the Dharma array. Damn it, it really is an ancient Dharma array. Xiao Hua was completely convinced. He now understood what it meant by, "There is always someone better than you" meant. This profound water palace was built under the Saint River. The world energy of heaven and earth in the entire Saint River can be used by the profound water palace. If I can't find the flaw of the Dharma array and forcefully break it, it's tantamount to going against the entire Saint River. Clang! Just as Xiao Hua was deep in thought, another golden sound came from behind him, resounding through the entire passage. Xiao Hua knew that Xian had activated her sword. However, since Xian didn't say anything, he didn't turn around either. He activated his Dharma eye again, and a faint silver-white beam of light shot out from his Dharma eye. It shot straight into the jade-green light. Since Xian did not speak, Xiao Hua thought that she was fine and could resist the spirit-swallowing bugs. However, at this time, Xian really had an unspeakable suffering. In just one wave, Xian's flexible sword had cut down dozens of elemental devouring insects. However, when she waved the flexible sword a second time, although the ribbon had swept away many elemental devouring insects, it was also surrounded by elemental devouring insects. Just as the legend said, elemental devouring insects love to control weapons and Buddhist weapons. Hundreds of elemental devouring insects swarmed onto the ribbon. Waves of rustling sounds like silkworms swallowing mulberry leaves could be heard. The golden brilliance on the flexible sword became increasingly faint. Xian didn't dare to be negligent, and hurriedly urged her true chi. Thousands of sword lights appeared on the ribbon, and although these sword lights killed many of the elemental eating insects, it also attracted even more elemental eating insects. Without waiting for Xian to urge her true chi again, the brilliance of the ribbon was destroyed, and a tattered broken soft sword appeared in the air. Even though it was so tattered, many elemental eating bugs still fell on it. These elemental eating bugs seemed to have seen delicious food. They even disregarded their lives and ate it bite by bite. Seeing this, Xian did not dare to be careless. She hurriedly cut off her connection with the soft sword and quickly retracted her genuine chi. Pata! The soft sword fell to the ground. Many elemental eating bugs also swarmed down. Ah! Xian's gaze was somewhat regretful as she looked at the soft sword. This soft sword had been with her for many years. In her heart, she was quite reluctant to part with it. However, when her gaze fell, she could not help but be shocked. She saw that on the ground, besides the broken sword, there were also a few struggling elemental eating bugs scattered around the broken sword. The elemental eating bugs that were killed by Xian earlier had disappeared without a trace. Xian was shocked. Hundreds of elemental eating bugs swarmed towards Xian. Xian could now clearly see the fangs of the closest elemental eating bug. Xian hurriedly stretched out her hand and was about to pull out the golden hairpin from her hairbun. However, after her hand touched the golden hairpin, she hesitated slightly and moved her hand away. Then she patted the top of her head. Kang! It was the sound of a golden chime that Xiao Hua heard. A mouthful of golden genuine qi spurted out from the top of Xian's head. That golden genuine qi was like the flying phoenix's golden sword. Following the spurting of the golden genuine qi, Xian's body gradually changed. Her previously white skin now turned pale gold. A thumb-sized imprint of a flying sword appeared between her eyebrows. Xian's face showed unswerving determination. The golden color in her eyes became more and more intense. Her hand formed a sword sign and she shouted, "Go!" The flying sword flapped its wings. Strands of sword light turned into small swords and flew towards the elemental eating bugs. Rumble! Contrary to Xian's expectations, when the flying sword rushed into the swarm of bugs, it actually sounded like rolling thunder. The entire passageway shook along with it. However, looking at the elemental eating bugs' corpses that were denser than raindrops, Xian's heart couldn't relax no matter what. Because this huge rumbling sound was clearly her contending against the entire passageway's restriction. It wasn't just the elemental eating bugs. Right at this moment, Xiao Hua also discovered the abnormality of the passageway's restriction. All the talisman characters in his Transcendence Eye were like a rising tide rushing towards one place. This surge even set off waves of talisman characters. The silver-white brilliance in Xiao Hua's Transcendence Eye was originally on the verge of being scattered by the jade tide. Now, it was even more inferior. Surprised, Xiao Hua unconsciously looked towards Xian. He saw a golden whirlpool that looked like a sea of swords fiercely rotating not far away. A strand of golden thread rushed out from this whirlpool. One end of the golden thread was in the shape of a huge flying phoenix. Surrounding the flying phoenix were densely packed small dots. These small dots were dark green in color. However, on top of this dark green, there were also strands or bits of silver white. Chapter 34:51. Just when Xiao Hua was about to close his Dharma eyes, a silver ball of light that looked like a flying phoenix caught his attention. Xiao Hua was rather surprised. "Oh, what is this?" However, before he could take a closer look, Xian's anxious voice sounded. "Little monk, I can't hold on for too long. If you can't find the entrance, then we can only go inside." "Okay, Xian, let's hurry and fly forward." Xiao Hua hurriedly closed his Dharma eyes. Currently, his Dharma eyes were refining the essence of the void-penetrating beast, so he didn't feel any fatigue using his Dharma eyes. Xian lightly reprimanded, and the flying phoenix sword in midair once again expanded. The small sword in the light feather frantically stabbed out, clearing the passage in front of Xian and Xiao Hua. Xian didn't dare to be negligent. She waved her hand and said, "Let's go." Her figure floated up first. She was actually also using the light body technique. Xiao Hua understood that Xian was afraid of attracting the attention of the elemental eating insects and didn't dare to let her true qi leak out. That was why she used the light body technique. Thus, he also hurriedly used the ethereal steps and followed behind Xian. Wang Wang. Xian had only flown 100 feet when another loud rumbling sound rang out. A group of elemental devouring insects that were even larger than the previous one flew out from the restriction of the passageway and pounced towards Xian and Xiao Hua. "Kill!" Xian sneered. The flying phoenix sword flying above her head once again streaked across the air, and layer after layer of elemental eating insects fell down. However, Xian clearly saw that the number of elemental eating insects killed by this sword was 40% less than before. If Xian could see it, how could Xiao Hua not know? Xian, these elemental eating insects seem to be related to the formation. It's not easy for us to tangle with them. Let's leave. Xiao Hua whispered. Xian opened her mouth. Her voice was like a golden chime, very cold. "Only you know. Do you think I can't see it?" If you don't speak, I won't know if you're mute. Hurry up and run. Xiaohua shrunk his neck. He didn't know why Exion was so cold. The ethereal steps under his feet sped up again. Xiaohua and Exion's wish was beautiful, but the elemental eating insects became more and more powerful. In the end, half of Exion's gold origin flying sword was actually eaten by elemental eating insects. A pitiful flying phoenix weakly struggled in midair. Damn it! Exion roared, and the flying phoenix let out a long cry. The cry was so loud that it sounded like it was crying blood, as if it was about to undergo nirvana. Upon seeing this, Xiaohua exclaimed in shock. Exion, what are you doing? As he spoke, the green light between his eyebrows shone brightly. Numerous green seal characters that Exion did not understand appeared like a swarm of bees, and layers of lightning appeared in the air. However, before the lightning completely appeared, all the element-eating insects in the passage immediately went berserk. Each and every one of them was more excited than if they had eaten spirit herbs, and they rushed towards Xiaohua and Exion. Boom! The golden phoenix condensed into a slender flying sword, and suddenly streaked across the air, killing dozens of elemental insects, and then turned into fireflies and disappeared. Exion's faint voice sounded. Of course it's to kill the elemental devouring bugs. What do you think I'm going to do? Ouch! Before Exion could finish, Exion suddenly covered her head with her hands and screamed in pain. As for Xiaohua, his entire Naiwen Gong was also splashing with golden light. The elemental insects actually launched a divine ability similar to Soul Stab under Xiaohua's lightning and thunder technique. Xiaohua is alarmed and hastily withdraws the green light from between his eyebrows. Sure enough, the green light disappears and the lightning disappears. The group of elemental eating insects return to their orderly state. Exion's expression also relaxes. Life is really full of surprises. Xiaohua looked at Exion frowning and wanted to blame himself, but when he opened his mouth, he did not say anything. He could not help but smile bitterly, and thought to himself, these elemental insects are somewhat similar to the strange insects I saw in the spatial vein. I originally wanted to use lightning and thunder technique to kill them, but I did not expect these elemental insects to be able to attack my Naiwen Gong. Alas now! I am not alone here, and Exion does not have any other means to defend her Naiwen Gong. This is really troublesome. Looks like I can only use the innate primordial water to protect myself. At this point, Xiaohua could only place his hopes on the innate primordial water. Looking at the elemental insects that were much bigger than a fist flapping their wings and flying towards him, Xiaohua formed a seal with both hands, and that pool of jade water flew out again. Unfortunately, the Tao of Heaven was probably joking with Xiaohua today. Just as the innate primordial water appeared, the entire passageway was filled with emerald green brilliance. The flowing runes that Xiaohua could only see with his transcendence vision suddenly surged on the walls, and those waves were exactly the same as the huge wolves in the West Sea. That steaming water vapor and surging turbulence immediately submerged Xiaohua's innate primordial water. Damn it! This was not the first time Xiaohua's innate primordial water had been defeated, so Xiaohua was not surprised. His heart sank, and he immediately wanted to withdraw it. But contrary to his expectations, the innate primordial water did not have the slightest reaction, as if it had completely lost control. Damn it, this is what it means to throw a meat bun at a dog, there is no return. Xiaohua was rather distressed, but he immediately became vigilant. Putting away the primordial water bottle, he hastily looked up. Sure enough, those runes that were originally emitting emerald brilliance had almost turned transparent after receiving the innate primordial water. This transparency rapidly spread throughout the entire passageway, and immediately, even more elemental insects appeared from the depths of the formation. We've poked a hornet's nest. Xiaohua turned pale with fright and hastily shouted, Exion, quickly run! After Exion's gold essence failed, she was originally walking behind Xiaohua. Her lightness technique was clearly inferior to Xiaohua's, so even if Xiaohua took the time to counterattack, she still could not catch up. At this moment, the innate primordial water overplayed its purpose, causing even more elemental insects to fly out, and Exion was the first to bear the brunt of these elemental insects' attack. Now Exion was really panicking. The sword light around her body surged again, and her right hand once again placed on the golden hairpin. Exion's sword light did not move, But with this move, the elemental insects that had just flown out bared their fangs and brandished their claws and pounced towards her. "If I don't show my power, you'll think I'm a sick cat." Xiao Hua clapped his hands, as if he was about to use the hand of Yuanying, but after hesitating for a moment, he took out the wishful steel rod from his space. Even when he took out the wishful steel rod, Xiao Hua's brows slightly wrinkled. Although Xi and Cheng's strange insects were called elemental insects, and these elemental insects were indeed slightly different from the spirit-swallowing bugs, Xiao Hua still had more than a dozen spirit-swallowing bugs, gold-swallowing bugs, wood-swallowing bugs, and so on in the sword tomb. Xiao Hua did not know if these spirit insects would listen to him now, but looking at these thousands of elemental insects, Xiao Hua also understood that 2 hands were no match for 4 fists. Not to mention the spirit-swallowing bugs. Even Little Black and Little Yellow were unlikely to be the opponents of these insects. Little Yellow and Little Black were Xiao Hua's own boy. In such a dangerous situation in the void, Xiao Hua was reluctant to let them out, let alone let them take risks at this time. Since he took out the wishful steel rod, Xiao Hua's whole body surged with golden light, and the divine power of the celestial body was once again displayed. A transcendence golden body of more than 10 feet in size appeared in front of the elemental insects. "Little monk, do you want to die?" Seeing the appearance of Xiao Hua's golden body, the elemental insects that were originally rushing towards Xian seemed to smell the fragrance of meat, and they all flapped their wings and rushed towards Xiao Hua. Xian screamed, and the slightly dimmer flying phoenix also flew out of the top of her head. "Kill!" Xiao Hua shook the wishful steel rod, and the rod became thick and long, waving in mid-air. When the elemental insects touched the wishful steel rod, they immediately burst, and the remains of the elemental insects fell to the ground and no longer disappeared. Good. Xiao Hua was overjoyed when he saw this. He knew that his secret method of breaking through with force had worked, and the wishful steel rod in his hand danced even harder. Xian's flying phoenix naturally could also succeed, but looking at Xiao Hua's majestic transcendence golden body, Xian slightly gritted her teeth and let the flying sword hover near her left side to protect herself, fighting while retreating. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the previously not particularly long building had not yet reached the end. The elemental insects in the passage could now be described as covering the sky and the sun. Not only did Xiao Hua's wishful steel rod not know when, but there were already a few elemental insects that were vigorously biting, and there were also no less than 100 elemental insects on Xiao Hua's golden body. Bursts of soreness and itchiness came from Xiao Hua's golden body, making Xiao Hua almost want to hit himself a few times. Looking at Xian again, she was not much better than Xiao Hua. She was also surrounded by more than a dozen elemental insects. While Xian urged the flying sword to contend with the elemental insects, she also had no good way to deal with these elemental insects. However, her palace dress emitted a golden light, which was obviously a treasure. For a time, the elemental insects could not cause real harm to her. Woo! As Xiao Hua's wishful steel rod swept, a large number of elemental insects fell, and then more elemental insects rushed over. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and used the heaven and earth sleeve technique. Shwa, a large number of elemental insects disappeared into thin air. Buddha's great Sumeru technique? Xian had been staring at Xiao Hua. At this time, her eyes were slightly narrowed, and her heart was shocked again. However, without waiting for her thoughts to turn, ouch! Xiao Hua's transcendence golden body hurriedly shook his arm, as if it was burned by fire. The elemental insects that had disappeared before appeared again, and even many of them were lying on his arm. Seeing Xiao Hua's embarrassed appearance, Xian actually smiled. This smile seemed to come from the heart, making her unremarkable face somewhat radiant. Damn it, fortunately I did not use the nascent soul hand. After Xiao Hua collected these elemental insects, he tried to use his mind to absorb them into the space. However, although these elemental insects were small, their resistance was not small. His mind could not control them, and they were still under Xiao Hua's control. Xiao Hua really felt like he was trying to steal a chicken, only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Alas, no wonder sword cultivators use sword pouches to collect the spirit-swallowing insects. Xiao Hua sighed. Seeing that force was not working, he could only use wisdom. But at this time, Xian raised her head and shouted, "Little monk, quickly rush forward. Don't care about these elemental insects. First find the exit of the passage. Your Transcendence golden body is huge enough for them to swallow, and I will also send out my true chi. Now we can only choose to cut our losses. Chapter 3452. Xian's suggestion wasn't wrong. At such a crucial moment, it was probably the wisest choice. However, Xian didn't know that Ci Hui and Gu Zhan had also done the same in order to charge out of the encirclement of the many elemental-eating insects. Jie. Xiao Hua laughed. Benefactor X, you see, this little monk will give it a plan to kill it. Let's see how many elemental-eating insects can run rampant in front of me. Oh, this little monk. While speaking, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the sword pouch. While waving the wishful rod, he opened his mouth and hit the sword pouch with a few sword chi. The sword pouch grew bigger and bigger under the sword chi. In particular, in the wishful rod, a dozen spirit-swallowing insects that were much smaller than the elemental-eating insects were also released by Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's intention of releasing these insects was not to let them fight with the elemental-eating insects, but to let them do the business of fishing and lure the elemental-eating insects into the sword pouch. However, to Xiao Hua's surprise, as soon as the spirit-swallowing insects landed in the air, all the elemental-eating insects calmed down. Not only did the elemental-eating insects on the body of the Transcendence golden body stop devouring, but the elemental-eating insects that attacked Xiao Hua also blankly floated there, as if they were stupid. Seeing such a situation, not to mention the elemental-eating insects, even Xian and Xiao Hua were dumbfounded. Almost unable to believe it, Xiao Hua inexplicably looked at Xian, and then the two of them read the confusion in each other's eyes. Just as Xiao Hua withdrew his gaze, his heart suddenly moved, and he hurriedly raised his eyebrows at Xian. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had forgotten that his hair was gone. In fact, his eyebrows were also gone, but Ci Hui and Xian did not mention it. At this time, Xiao Hua's eyebrows could only tremble strangely. Fortunately, when Xian saw Xiao Hua's face, she immediately understood and hurriedly nodded slightly, quietly put away the flying sword, and slipped into the passage. Seeing that Xian was so decisive, Xiao Hua was also relieved. He did not dare to rashly put away his Transcendence golden body, and only looked at the dozen spirit-swallowing insects. In fact, the dozen spirit-swallowing insects were not all spirit-swallowing insects. There were several mutated ones that sword cultivators failed to cultivate in the past. However, now these spirit-swallowing insects flew in the air, facing tens of thousands of elemental-eating insects, as if there were no insects. Yes, these spirit-swallowing bugs seemed to have been separated into yin and yang in the space. Xiao Hua's eyes fell on the golden threads on the back of the spirit-swallowing bugs, and he suddenly realized something. Since the superpower centipede can become smart, the spirit-swallowing bugs won't be worse than the superpower centipede, right? Wang wang. At this moment, another wave of noise came from the depths of the stone wall. A silvery white ball flew out from the green ball. It was an elemental-eating insect that was 10 times larger than an ordinary elemental-eating insect. Could it be? This is the elemental-devouring insect king? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes, looking at the elemental-devouring insect and guessed. Jie. The sound of sharp teeth biting glass came out from the energy-eating bug king's mouth. Instantly, the entire energy-eating bug king squirmed as if it had issued an order. At the same time, Xiao Hua's Naiwen palace was also flickering with a golden light. Clearly, the essence-eating insect king's command had the effect of a soul stab. Xiao Hua was slightly startled and looked at the elemental-eating insects. Out of Xiao Hua's expectation, these elemental-devouring insects only moved half a foot forward and then stopped, as if they were afraid of Xiao Hua's dozens of spirit-swallowing insects. Hum! The elemental-eating bug king's wings suddenly emitted a strong sound and pounced on the nearest elemental-eating bug. With a few crunching sounds, the elemental-eating bug was bitten into pieces by the elemental-eating bug king and swallowed into its stomach. The other elemental-eating bugs retreated in fear, but they didn't dare to attack the spirit-swallowing bugs. The elemental-eating bug king hovered in the air for a while and seemed to be helpless. It flapped its wings and rushed to the spirit-swallowing bugs alone. Good. Xiao Hua praised in his heart. The wishful staff in his hand trembled slightly. He understood that as long as he killed the elemental-eating insect king, these elemental-eating insects would collapse and he would be able to safely pass through this damn passage with Xian. Before Xiao Hua could raise his wishful staff, more than a dozen spirit-swallowing bugs, which were much smaller than the elemental devouring bugs, flew up in the air. Then, 9 of them flew up in groups of 3, while the others went to the left and right. They were divided into different levels and attacked the elemental devouring bug king from the side. Is this still an insect? Xiao Hua saw this and his eyes widened. An incredible feeling came from the bottom of his heart. The wishful staff in his hands stopped. He knew that if these dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs killed the elemental-eating bug king, these dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs would be the king of the entire elemental-eating bug king. If he forced the wishful staff, these spirit-swallowing bugs may not be able to convince the masses. Kacha. Kacha. A series of chaotic noises came from midair, and Xiao Hua became more and more dumbstruck. The elemental-eating bug king was huge and its teeth were sharp. Although there were more than a dozen spirit-swallowing bugs, they were obviously not its opponent. However, these dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs attacked the energy-eating bug king from all sides at the same time. Once the energy-eating bug king heard a spirit-swallowing bug, this spirit-swallowing bug would immediately dodge, and another spirit-swallowing bug would take its place. Thus, the energy-eating bug king still maintained an impenetrable formation. Ordinary people would find it difficult to fight against 4 hands with 2 fists, let alone the spirit-swallowing bugs with sharp teeth. In just a few minutes, a long whisker of the elemental-eating bug king was bitten off by a spirit-swallowing bug. Kacha! The elemental-eating bug king issued an order again, and the nearby elemental-eating bugs began to squirm. The 3 spirit-swallowing bugs that were flying around the periphery immediately flew out of the battle group and swaggered around the elemental-eating bugs. Sure enough, the restless elemental-eating bugs immediately calmed down. Seeing this, these spirit-swallowing bugs hurriedly rushed into the battle group again. Interesting. Xiao Hua found it funny. He simply stopped taking back his Transcendence golden body and watched the battle with a smile on his face. If this situation was seen by Ci Hui and Gu Zhen, wouldn't they be furious? The thousands of elemental-eating bugs that could devour relics and Buddha statues didn't want to fight at all. They just watched blankly on the wall. Once the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs succeeded, they immediately swarmed to attack. The elemental-eating bug king was at a loss. Obviously, it was not as agile as these spirit-swallowing bugs. It only chased after the spirit-swallowing bug in front of it and attacked, completely unaware that this spirit-swallowing bug had been replaced by 4 in a moment. Under the attacks of the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs, the body of the elemental-eating bug king began to shatter. Ka! The elemental-eating bug king opened its mouth to cry for help. This time, the elemental-eating bugs didn't have the slightest intention to move. At first, Xiao Hua thought that the elemental-eating bug king couldn't command these elemental-eating bugs. But when he saw the elemental-eating bug king's cry and the green brilliance on the walls of the passage rising and falling from time to time, he suddenly realized that the elemental-eating bug king was activating the magic formation of the passage. The reason why the magic formation of the passage didn't attack like the elemental-eating bug king was that the magic formation couldn't distinguish whether the fight between the spirit-swallowing bugs and the elemental-eating bug king was a fight for the throne or an invasion. Now that he understood, Xiao Hua felt a little lucky. If he joined in, he might not be able to kill the elemental-eating bug king with one blow, but those elemental-eating bugs would definitely attack him, and even the magic formation of the passage would be triggered. Wouldn't his advantage of releasing the spirit-swallowing bugs be exhausted? Seeing that its cry for help didn't work, the elemental-eating bug king became more terrified. It screamed and turned around, trying to escape from the siege of the spirit-swallowing bugs. What surprised Xiao Hua even more happened. The dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs didn't deliberately block the escape of the elemental-eating bug king, but surrounded it and killed it at the same time. Seeing that there was always a chance to escape, the elemental-eating bug king only wanted to escape, but it neglected its attack. Then, after just a few dozen meters, half of its body was swallowed by the spirit-swallowing bugs. Buzz! Seeing that the elemental-eating bug king was about to fall to the ground, the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs rushed up and instantly showed ferocious expressions. With a kacha-kacha sound, the spirit-swallowing bugs devoured the elemental-eating bug king completely. Then, these spirit-swallowing bugs spread their wings and flew back. They circled around Xiao Hua's Transcendence golden body several times, and then flew towards the thousands of elemental-eating bugs. Damn it, are they greeting me? Xiao Hua didn't dare to release the spirit-swallowing bugs before, not only because he was afraid that the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs couldn't defeat the thousands of elemental-eating bugs, but also because he couldn't control them. Now, these spirit-swallowing bugs actually showed off in front of him. How could he not know that these spirit-swallowing bugs were really psychic? After cursing with a smile, he opened the sword pouch. As expected, the dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs flew to different places. With their wings buzzing and mouths clanging, a spirit-swallowing bug led a team of elemental-eating bugs into the sword pouch. Seeing the dozens of teams of elemental-eating bugs flying into the sword pouch in a uniform manner, Xiao Hua couldn't stop smiling. These are thousands of elemental-eating bugs. As long as I take them out of the mysterious water palace, damn it, who dares to go against me? As long as I'm not happy, I'll release them. Not to mention devouring them, I'll scare you to death. When the elemental-eating bugs in the passage completely disappeared, Xiao Hua immediately put away the sword pouch. As expected, in a moment, dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs flew out again and swayed in front of Xiao Hua. Good boys. Xiao Hua put away his transcendence golden body. With a wave of his hand, he took out some spiritual herbs and handed them to the spirit-swallowing bugs. The dozens of spirit-swallowing bugs rushed forward and devoured the spiritual herbs in a few breaths. Chapter 34:53. Go. If you're so obedient in the future, I'll treat you all the same. With that, Xiao Hua waved his hand again and threw a lot of spiritual herbs into the sword pouch. The spirit-swallowing bugs danced in front of Xiao Hua for a while before falling into the sword pouch. Ha ha ha, it's really interesting. These bugs are so fun. Xiao Hua put away the sword pouch, looked at Enchanting who had disappeared in the distance, and ran forward in high spirits. When he saw Enchanting, it was already a while later. Enchanting, who had reached the end of the passage, was now urging the flying sword to attack the restriction formation of the passage. Moreover, there was already light leaking in from the passage. Seeing that Xiao Hua was safe, Enchanting's face showed ecstasy at first, but then her pale golden face turned cold again. She asked faintly, "Little monk, you're really amazing. I tried my best to break through the formation again, but you easily got rid of tens of thousands of elemental devouring bugs. I really can't think of any ancient temple in the Pure Land world that has such a powerful monk like you." Xiao Hua shrugged and said with a smile, "Since you don't know, don't think too much. The important thing is that you and I are both still alive. This seems to be the most important thing, right?" Humph. Enchanting put away the flying sword and pointed to the place where the light came in. "This is the exit of the passage. Don't you have a magic wand? Don't make me waste my energy." Well said, well said. Xiao Hua smiled and took out the wishful steel staff from his sleeve. With a loud shout, he hit the light with the head of the staff. With a rumbling sound, like the sound of a wall collapsing, a 3-meter-long triangle appeared. Xiao Hua and Enchanting entered the same corridor as Cai Hui and Gu Zhen, but as Sky Dragon said, one was the Palace of Eternal Life, and the other was the Palace of Mysterious Water. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua and Enchanting did not know that they were not Cai Hui, and the Palace of Mysterious Water did not have ancient Buddha Tsili, so they did not have Cai Hui's perception and could only walk blindly in the corridor. Xiao Hua was very self-aware. As soon as he entered the corridor, he said with a smile, "Enchanting, this little monk has always been directionally challenged. Not to mention inside the hall, even in the wilderness, I can't find my way. Therefore, I will leave the matter of finding the exit to Tan Yu. This little monk will only stand guard behind Tan Yu. Protector." Enchanting glanced at Xiao Hua. She seemed to have thought of something. She raised her head and looked at the incomparably huge tunnel. Frowning, she said, "I wonder how Grandmaster Gu Zhan and fellow immortal Cai Hui are doing? Will they be able to obtain the ancient Buddha blessing?" However, as she spoke, a trace of worry appeared on Enchanting's face. It was clear that the dangers in these places were beyond her expectations. If not for Xiao Hua by her side, it was almost impossible for her to come out of the 2 passages, let alone reach this place. She wasn't sure about Gu Zhen's strength, but she knew about Cai Hui. If things went as she expected, the possibility of Cai Hui and Gu Zhen dying was very high. As if he knew what Enchanting was thinking, Xiao Hua squeezed out a smile and comforted her. "Enchanting, don't worry. Our Buddhist protectors all have their own secret techniques and divine abilities. Didn't you see? Earlier, this little monk relied on the golden Buddha statue to overcome the tribulation. Grandmaster Guzhan's Buddhist attainments are much higher than this little monk's. They'll definitely be able to arrive at the Darkwater Palace and obtain the ancient Buddha blessing. When he spoke up to this point, Xiaohua glanced at the passageways in the surroundings and intentionally changed the topic. Now that I think about it, Xian Tanue, the problem isn't whether they obtained the ancient Buddha streamers or not. The problem is whether there are ancient Buddha streamers at the place they went to, or in other words, whether there are any within the Darkwater Palace. If the contents of Mo Yuntong's book are nonsense, then they probably won't be able to find it even if they risk their lives. You're the one who's talking nonsense. Xian was anxious. Would I dare tell Grandmaster Guzhan if I wasn't confident? Not to mention that Mo Yuntong is. When she spoke up to hear, Xian seemed to have realized something, and she glanced at Xiaohua and said, "Humph. Don't even think about Mo Yuntong's origins. Most of the dangers we encountered earlier were recorded in Mo Yuntong's book. I'm afraid she hasn't obtained the rest." If she hasn't obtained it, then how would she know that there are ancient Buddha blessings in the Darkwater Palace? Xiaohua retorted sarcastically, "It seems that I haven't seen any traces of the ancient Buddha blessing even after waiting for so long. Don't tell me I can also write to Mo Yuntong that there are immortal artifacts here? Write if you want, as long as you're not afraid of karma." Xian smiled faintly. At this moment, the two of them had reached a fork in the road. Xian looked around for a moment and randomly chose a path, saying as she walked, "It's good that we didn't find the ancient Buddha blessing. If we did, what would Cai Hui and Grandmaster Guzhan do?" "Oh, I understand. Little monk, you're also coveting the ancient Buddha blessing, aren't you?" Xian looked at Xiaohua with a smile. "Your greed isn't ordinary. I want that immortal artifact." Xiaohua raised his head and smiled like a little fox. Xian pouted, "Don't even think about it, I want it too." But at this point, Xian's expression changed. Previously, Xiaohua hadn't revealed his strength, and he was with Cai Hui, so Xian didn't care about him. But now, Xian could see clearly that Xiaohua had endless means. How could she compare to him? If he wanted the immortal artifact, he might have a chance. In fact, Xian even thought of some bad things. "What?" Xiaohua saw the change in Xian's expression and said with a smile, "Could it be that you also want the immortal artifact? Instead of looking for someone?" "Humph." Xian snorted coldly. "I'm not someone who doesn't mean what I say. Moreover, I've already made my purpose very clear." Clap clap. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Since that's the case, it's good. It would be impolite for this little monk to refuse this immortal artifact. I'm ashamed to accept it." Xian fiercely clenched her teeth. It would be a lie to say that she didn't covet the immortal artifact, but she also knew that it was wishful thinking to rely on her own strength to obtain the immortal artifact. Therefore, she only put searching for someone as her top priority, and didn't even mention the immortal artifact in front of others. However, the human heart had always been like this. If she couldn't obtain it, others shouldn't be able to either. But if others could obtain it and she couldn't, it was inevitable that jealousy would arise in her heart. Xian might not be able to reach the level of jealousy of others, but clearly, she also felt uncomfortable in her heart. It was the same feeling as when Guzhan faced Cai Hui, the feeling of making a wedding dress for someone else. With Xian's thoughts, the atmosphere unconsciously became strange. Only the sound of light footsteps could be heard in the passageway. After walking for a while, seeing that Xian was somewhat absent-minded, Xiaohua spoke again. "Xian, this profound water palace doesn't seem to be as simple as an ancient spell formation?" "Little monk, what do you mean?" Xian shook her head and did her best to throw away these distracting thoughts as she asked. Xiaohua pointed at the tall passageway and explained, "If it's an ancient Taoist spell formation, there's no need to use such a tall passageway, right? It's too much of a waste of materials." "What are you trying to say? You might as well be more direct." Xian snappily interrupted Xiaohua's words, but without waiting for Xiaohua to open his mouth again, Xian suddenly thought of the white bones that she had seen in the spiritual grassland, her brows wrinkled as she said, "You mean? This profound water palace is so big, and many Taoist restrictions rely on the golden Buddha statues to resist. It seems to have something to do with diviners, right?" Diviners? Xian's expression changed and her eyes rippled again. She stared at Xiao Hua and asked again, "Little monk, you actually know about diviners?" Xiao Hua smiled, raising his eyebrows without eyebrows. Dong dong. At this moment, in the tunnel not far away, a huge battle puppet appeared out of nowhere. It was also covered in battle armor and held a spear in its hand. When it took a step, the entire tunnel shook as it walked over. Diviners? Xian turned to look and was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. No. Xiao Hua's eyes swept over. Although he was shocked, his reaction was different from Xian's. "It's a puppet." Puppet. Xian was stunned and immediately understood. She nodded and said, "That's right, it's a battle puppet of the Taoist sect." Then, Xian's heart skipped a beat. Her gaze moved away from the battle puppet and looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully. Her gaze was meaningful. However, when Xian saw the expression in Xiao Hua's eyes, she was stunned again. That expression seemed very familiar. Yes, just a moment ago, when Xiao Hua saw the spiritual grasses and the huge transmission array. His gaze was exactly the same as it was at that time. It was a kind of greed, a kind of eagerness. It was as if a pair of hands had reached out from his eyes and grabbed the huge battle puppet from afar. This battle puppet will be left to this little monk. Xiao Hua reluctantly moved his gaze away from the battle puppet. He smacked his lips and swallowed the saliva in his mouth with difficulty. However, when he saw Xian's gaze, he couldn't help but be stunned. "You? Why are you looking at me? There's a flower on your face." Xian said seriously, "In the future, you can change your name to Flower Monk." "Is that so?" Xiao Hua listened to the sound of the battle puppet slowly walking over. There was no fear at all. He touched his face with his hand and smiled. "Let this little monk see what kind of flower it is. If it looks good, I'll give it to Sandalwood. This flower is only called a flower when worn on a girl's head. If it grows on the ground, it's not called a flower." "Bah!" Xian spat softly. Suddenly, Xiao Hua's heart trembled. However, right after that, Xiao Hua shouted, "Almsgiver Exin, hold the formation for this little monk so that this little monk can capture this battle avatar." Although Xiao Hua emphasized the words benefactor and little monk, Xian could still hear the weakness in Xiao Hua's tone. Hum. Xiao Hua raised his hand and held the wishful steel staff in his hand. He no longer avoided Xian. His whole body flashed with golden light as he secretly urged his spiritual power. At the same time he shouted, "Chong chong chong." Chapter 34-54. Seeing that Xiao Hua's transcendence golden body was slowly being displayed, from a few dozen feet to a few dozen feet, and even to a few dozen feet, Xian's face did not change much. However, when Xian saw Xiao Hua's staff growing thicker and thicker with Xiao Hua's thoughts, she seemed to have thought of something, and her face turned pale. Xiao Hua naturally did not know what Xian was thinking. The staff swayed in mid-air and hit the stone wall. Xiao Hua simply threw the staff and hit the stone wall. With a muffled bang, the stone wall was smashed in an instant. Xiao Hua was very happy and shouted, "You brat, can you fight with me?" The battle avatar naturally wouldn't answer his question, but the viper-like spear had already answered Xiao Hua's question. The spear was like lightning, and the tip of the spear was like a snake. The battle avatar actually waved its hand from over 10 zhong away, and the spear left its hand and directly pierced towards Xiao Hua's heart. Now, Xiao Hua was like a god. He was dozens of feet tall, and he had really pushed the Transcendence golden body to the extreme. Looking at the battle puppet of the same size and Xian, who was like an ant, an unparalleled lofty aspiration was born from the bottom of Xiao Hua's heart. Fight! Xiao Hua was not afraid. He waved the staff. It seemed to be light, but it hit the spear very cleverly. Pa! A very strange light sound was heard. The spear was hit by the staff. The spear was more flexible than a spirit snake, and the tail of the spear was slapped toward Xiao Hua's left armpit. Xiao Hua's heavenly staff technique was certainly familiar, but this change was really fast. Caught off guard, the spear hit Xiao Hua all of a sudden. Boom! The power of the spear was beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. It was shockingly powerful. Xiao Hua instantly lost his balance, and his body, which was dozens of feet tall, fell towards the stone wall with a loud bang. Crash! The stone wall, which was flickering with blue light, was unable to support Xiao Hua's Dharma body. It was like an ordinary wall, and everything within dozens of feet collapsed. The golden light around Xiao Hua, who was lying on the wall, flickered rapidly. The place where the spear had just struck had already caved in. Moreover, in the surroundings of the caved-in, there were many cracks spreading out. As the golden light flickered, the cracks and caved-in were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. A bone-piercing pain came from Jin's body. Xiao Hua couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He lay on the ground, almost unable to stand up. How can this puppet be so powerful? This was Xiao Hua's first thought. Then with a roar, Xiao Hua was really angry. His figure did not wait for him to get up. The wishful staff in his hand waved again, and the nearby wall was in a mess. Xiao Hua got up from the mess and waved the wishful staff towards the puppet that had already rushed over with its fists like a fighting machine. Boom! The wishful steel staff hit the arm of the war puppet as it wished, but the result was indeed not satisfactory. On the arm of the war puppet, a blue brilliance flashed and finally, it was quickly annihilated. A trace of cracks appeared on the arm of the war puppet. Xiao Hua's wishful steel staff could not even break the arm of the war puppet. It was not as good as the previous Gu Zhen. Not only that, but in just a few breaths, the arm of the war puppet reappeared, and the cracks that had been hit were healing. Seeing this, Xiao Hua was not surprised, but his eyes narrowed slightly. He was looking at the chest of the war puppet. If Xiao Hua's expectations were correct, the body of the war puppet must be supported by the spirit stone. The power of Xiao Hua's staff was only the effect of the spirit stone. Xiao Hua's current plan was that as long as the spirit stone of the war puppet was exhausted, this war puppet would no longer be the war puppet that could break Xiao Hua's golden body with a spear. The war puppet was just a huge puppet. Whether it was to kill it or even subdue it, wasn't it all under Xiao Hua's control? Thinking about the words Xiao Hua on the forehead of this huge war puppet, Xiao Hua could not help but be excited. He unconsciously laughed strangely and said, "Little darling, don't struggle. Quickly come into the arms of this young master. This young master will love you." As he spoke, the wishful staff was raised again, and without waiting for the cracks on the arm of the war puppet to heal, he hit it again. How could the war puppet understand? Next to him, Xian also understood, and her slightly pale golden skin instantly had goosebumps. However, in a moment, Xian was shocked again. In her eyes, this war puppet definitely had the strength of a 5th-level elemental force. This kind of strength did not lie in the depth of the elemental force, nor in the amount of elemental force, but in the strength of the spear, the reaction of the war puppet, and even the moves of the war puppet. Xian understood that this war puppet's moves were ingenious. Each move was flawless, and the waving of the spear was a means to kill the enemy. If she were to face this war puppet, although she could defend herself with the Imperial equipment, the Imperial equipment would definitely not be a match for the huge strength of the war puppet. This was the principle of the so-called one strength conquers 10,000. Xian knew that it was impossible for her to be a match for the war puppet, but the Xiao Hua in front of her was unusually brave. He was definitely not the little monk who only knew how to bicker with Xian before. Not to mention the fierceness of the moves, not to mention the elegance of the wishful staff, but the bravery of the war puppet spear made Xian convinced. The battle between Xiao Hua and the war puppet was tragic, and it was almost like the staff was touching the flesh. Xiao Hua and the war puppet were evenly matched. Not to mention that you were knocked down by the spear. Even I was swept down by the wishful staff. In half a cup of tea's time, the entire passage was a mess. Within 100 feet of space, there were ruins, and it was really ugly. The body of the man and the war puppet was also full of scars. Not only were there thick cracks all over the war puppet's body, even Xiao Hua's golden skin was black and missing a few pieces. It should be because of the war puppet's attack. But the more it was like this, the more Xian was shocked. She really couldn't understand. How could a little monk of the Buddhist sect be so vulgar with the war puppet of the Tao sect? Where did those profound Buddhist techniques and even the previous Tao techniques go? Little monk, after watching for a moment, Xian was frightened and couldn't help but send a voice transmission. Can you beat the war puppet? Where did all your Buddhist divine abilities go? Grandma, Xiaohua roared. I am a Buddhist Vajra. Is it possible that I am afraid of this war puppet? Xiaohua was once again caught off guard and was hit on the head by the spear. With a loud bang, the ground of the passage also sank a few feet deep hole. Why are you competing with a war puppet? Xian also unconsciously roared. What do you know? Xiaohua stood up from the wall and shook the dust off his body. He raised the wishful staff and rushed to the war puppet. At the same time, he shouted, this war puppet is not a human. It can only persist because of the spirit stones. This little monk is fighting with it. Isn't it just to consume its spirit stones? In an instant, Xian immediately understood the greedy Xiaohua's thoughts. She raised her trembling finger and shouted, you still want this war puppet? Why not? Xiaohua didn't seem to be embarrassed that his abacus had been exposed and asked back. In just a moment, Xiaohua and the war puppet fought for several rounds. Xian's guess was right. A single force conquers all methods. This war puppet relied on this huge force to kill countless cultivators who coveted the profound water palace. And today, it encountered Xiaohua, who excelled in brute force. It could be said that it met a good talent. In the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua actually didn't have the upper hand at all. He didn't find this strange, because during this meal, the battle puppet didn't show any signs of energy exhaustion at all. Even the flaws in the spear's moves were becoming increasingly fewer. How was this the appearance of spirit stones being depleted? What's going on? Xiaohua felt that his arm was a little sore and numb. He was slightly puzzled. At this time, Xian also felt that something was wrong. Seeing Xian urge her genuine qi, the golden light above her eyes shone brightly. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the fiery golden eyes. Little monk. Suddenly Xian, who seemed to have seen something, turned pale with fright again and exclaimed, don't you have any ideas? This war puppet doesn't have any spirit stones. The space between its feet and the ground is a little strange. Every time it moves, the world's spirit energy will be sent into the passage. In this passage. No, in the profound water palace, you are definitely not the war puppet's opponent. I see. Xiaohua understood and immediately laughed. Then it's even easier. As he spoke, he patted his forehead. A huge hand emerged from the top of Xiaohua's head and grabbed at the war puppet. The hand of a nascent soul? Xian bit her lips. Her eyes revealed an indescribable look. Even Xian herself didn't know what this meant. Boom! The nascent soul's hand grabbed the war puppet and threw it into the air. Buzz! At this time, the war puppet's body shone with a blue brilliance. Rays of light sharper than flying swords pierced the nascent soul's hand. Even the war puppet's spear pierced the nascent soul's hand with a pang sound. Pop! Like the sound of a bubble bursting, the nascent soul's hand was instantly destroyed by the light of the war puppet. Xiaohua's body shone with a golden light. Moreover, the innate divine restriction on his Naiwen palace emitted a faint golden light again. Obviously, the blue thorn could also attack divine sense. Xiaohua frowned and fell into deep thought. He had always thought that the war puppet only relied on its fists and feet and couldn't use magic arts. But now, it seemed that it was just as Xian said. The war puppet was part of a magic array. Not only could it borrow the magic power of the magic array and exchange it for energy, the magic array could also use the war puppet to attack. If this was the case, even if Xiaohua captured the war puppet, he might not be able to use it. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's eyes turned. Behind Xian's back, his left hand formed a spell that Xiaohua had comprehended long ago, but he had never used it. Following the activation of Xiaohua's Fa Li, an earthy yellow brilliance flashed around the body of the battle puppet. This brilliance instantly turned into tens of thousands of thin threads, completely covering the battle puppet. When the threads of light disappeared, the entire battle puppet seemed to have sunk into a deep pool. Not only was it unable to wave its spear, even its hands and feet seemed to be bound and unable to move. Chapter 3455. Little darling, you can get up. Xiao Hua roared, his figure bent slightly, and the wishful steel staff swung towards the legs of the battle puppet. Before Xiao Hua's wishful steel staff could touch the battle puppet, the stone wall flashed with brilliance, and countless fireflies fell like raindrops, covering Xiao Hua and the battle puppet. Oh no! Xiao Hua was shocked. He didn't know what these fireflies were. He couldn't care less about attacking the battle puppet again. He hurriedly raised his hand, and the seal of turning the sea rushed out of the space. Buzz! When the sound was heard, the bronze brilliance protected Xiao Hua. Zilala! Like the sound of water droplets falling into a pot of oil, the bronze brilliance was rapidly eroded, and even the seal of turning the sea itself trembled slightly in the air. Xiao Hua hurriedly urged his spiritual power, and his hands formed a seal. The seal of turning the sea roared again, trying its best to resist the green fireflies. At this moment, there was a muffled sound, and a sharp pain came from Xiao Hua's abdomen. A violent spiritual power instantly rushed into Xiao Hua's Transcendence Golden Body from the pain, destroying Xiao Hua's Transcendence Golden Body like a stampede of 10,000 horses. Xiao Hua lowered his head in disbelief, only to see that the spear in the battle puppet's hand had already pierced his abdomen. When Xiao Hua raised his head to look, the battle puppet, whose hands and feet had been bound a moment ago, was now rapidly flowing with blue light. Xiao Hua's silk binding technique had already been broken by shattering fireflies. A thick arm that had suddenly extended by a lot stabbed out with a spear, while the other arm clenched into a fist and punched towards the left side of Xiao Hua's face. Courting death. Xiao Hua was angry. He was greedy for small gains, so he was reluctant to destroy the battle puppet, but he didn't expect to suffer such a big loss. Roar! Xiao Hua hurriedly retreated, and hurriedly urged the seal of turning the sea. With a loud dragon roar, the coiling dragon on the seal of turning the sea turned 10 feet thick, flew out of the seal of turning the sea, and rushed towards the chest of the battle puppet with the seal in its mouth. Boom! The battle avatar was also extremely agile. Its right fist immediately gave up on Xiao Hua and punched the seal of overturn the sea. With a loud boom, the battle avatar's fist was knocked off a large part. The battle avatar's figure also staggered. The seal of overturn the sea was also sent flying high up into the air and rushed to the top of the passage. Little thing, you're down. Taking advantage of the battle puppet's staggered, Xiao Hua retreated, and successfully got away from the spear. At the same time, the wishful steel staff on the ground, and hit the left leg of the battle puppet. The battle avatar was originally staggering, but now, it was swaying even more, as if it was going to fall to the ground. Seeing this, Xiao Hua's eyes widened, and his Dharma body rushed towards the legs of the battle puppet. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to defeat the battle puppet. The battle puppet didn't panic. Although it saw the seal of turning the sea once again rushing from the sky, the right fist that had slowly healed was ready to strike again, and the left arm was retracted, and the spear stabbed towards Xiao Hua's back. Dang! Xiao Hua naturally let go of the battle puppet's attack, and swung the wishful steel staff in his left hand to block the spear. His Dharma body rushed forward, and hugged the legs of the battle puppet. The battle puppet was also very good. Although its figure was crooked, its right foot kicked up without hesitation, obviously trying to force Xiao Hua to defend. Who knew, with a loud bang, the right leg of the battle puppet kicked Xiao Hua's chest, and Xiao Hua didn't intend to dodge at all. Almost like the spear piercing the golden body, a strange force rushed into the golden body, crazily destroying it. When Xiao Hua urged the heavenly law embodiment of heaven and earth to contend with this force, he laughed proudly. Haha! You should obediently be this father's puppet. Along with the laughter, Xiao Hua's left arm exerted strength, and his left shoulder arched forward, like a little ruffian fighting in the marketplace. He wanted to throw the battle puppet over. Regardless of whether Xiao Hua's move was obscene or not, in short, it was really effective. The battle puppet's figure was completely out of balance, and it was thrown towards the ground. Xiao Hua's right leg swept the ground again, and when the battle puppet's left leg left the ground, he could put the battle puppet into the space. Just when Xiao Hua was feeling proud, suddenly, a very familiar hissing sound came from above his head. See! Before Xiao Hua could raise his head to look, he heard Xion's frightened shout, "Little monk, Blackwater ancient beast!" What? Blackwater ancient beast? Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. How? How did it get here? Above Xiao Hua's head, there was a green brilliance that opened like a door. The black water ancient beast that had previously entered the black water palace only now found this place. Seeing that Xiao Hua was fighting with the battle puppet, its eyes immediately flashed with a dark green brilliance. Following a hissing sound, the black water ancient beast shook its head, and a desolate aura was released from its body, pressing down on Xiao Hua like a mountain. At the same time, the black water ancient beast opened its mouth, and a stream of green water poured down like the Milky Way. Amidst Xian's panicked shout, Xiao Hua and the battle puppet were covered together. Damn it! Seeing that he had failed at the last step, Xiao Hua was helpless. He didn't dare to put his mind on the battle puppet anymore. Before he could even raise his head, he immediately let go of the battle puppet and turned slightly, wanting to escape. At the same time, Xiao Hua didn't forget to kick the battle puppet with his right leg, and his left hand slapped the top of his head, releasing a pressure comparable to that of a doppelganger stage cultivator. He did his best to resist the black water ancient beast's ferocious aura. However, Xiao Hua still underestimated the strength of the guardian beast. His right leg had just kicked the battle puppet down when his whole body immediately stiffened, as if he was in a block of ice. An indescribable feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. Imprisonment technique? No. Blood-dripping paradise. Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment, then suddenly realized that this was the feeling he had when he was trapped in the blood-dripping paradise. This ancient beast is actually so powerful. At this time, Xiao Hua's heart was like dead ashes. Although he had already advanced to the nascent soul stage and his strength had greatly increased, he still didn't have any comprehension of the so-called domain realm. Even the blood-drop paradise couldn't cultivate to the domain realm so quickly. Little thing, then let's fight. Xiao Hua watched as the profound water ancient beast pounced from the sky. On the ferocious beast's head, its dark green eyes were filled with cruelty. It clenched its teeth and black mist began to surge around its body. Strands of black flames also surged out along with the devil chi. The blood-dripping paradise really had some effect. Xiao Hua felt that his body was somewhat relaxed, as if he could move. Unfortunately, the profound water ancient beast didn't give Xiao Hua any chance at all. It opened its mouth again and the jade spring rushed out again. Xiao Hua felt his body tighten and the blood-dripping paradise couldn't be activated again. What should I do? Xiao Hua anxiously thought of a countermeasure. Suddenly, Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and slightly closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened them again. Above Xiao Hua's head, bursts of golden light flourished. It was the green-robed Xiao Hua's invisible nascent soul that rushed out of Xiao Hua's body. As the nascent soul rubbed its hands, strands of golden light more intense than sunlight shot into the green fireflies around Xiao Hua's body. Gotcha! The profound water ancient beast's immature domain collapsed under the nascent soul spell. Demonic chi? In the distance, Xian had already held the golden hairpin in her hand when the profound water ancient beast appeared. Unfortunately, the ancient beast's power and the domain's power forced Xian to activate her genuine chi. The palace dress on her body flourished with golden light as she tried her best to resist. Although Xian wanted to spare some time to help Xiao Hua, seeing the demonic chi in Xiao Hua's golden body, her face was already very shocked. Now, she couldn't be any more shocked. The golden hairpin also froze in her hand. Xiao Hua was really too mysterious. Was he a Buddhist? A Confucian cultivator? A Taoist cultivator? Or maybe a devil? Xian lost her judgment. She didn't know how to help. At this moment, the profound water ancient beast unexpectedly raised its head. Its dark green eyes looked at Xian again. Its gaze fell on the golden hairpin that was already flashing with golden light. Not good. When Xiao Hua saw the profound water ancient beast looking at Xian, he already understood that this guy wanted to attack Xian first. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Sure enough, without waiting for Xiao Hua's reminder, the profound water ancient beast turned into a green light and was about to pass over Xiao Hua's head. Where are you going? The green-robed Xiao Hua urged his nascent soul. With a wave of his hands, the nascent soul's hand appeared out of thin air and was about to capture the ancient beast. Xiao Hua himself raised his hand and leaped into the air, attacking the profound water ancient beast with the wishful staff. Whoosh! There was a loud noise. It was the battle puppet that was previously knocked down. Before it could stand up, the spear in its hand unexpectedly flew out of its hand. In a flash, it mysteriously appeared behind Xiao Hua's back and went straight to his waist. Xiao Hua naturally noticed it this time, but it was really difficult for him to have both sides. If he took care of himself, the wishful staff could certainly send the spear flying, but he wasn't sure if his nascent soul's hand could catch the profound water ancient beast. Even Xiao Hua didn't think that a single nascent soul's hand could stop the profound water ancient beast. Forget it. In an instant, Xiao Hua made a decision. His right foot turned and kicked. He didn't care if he could succeed or not. His hands used all the strength of his body to attack the profound water ancient beast. He didn't expect to succeed, as long as he could block the ancient beast. Whoa! Under the wishful staff, the Xianshu ancient beast was covered. The fierce wind could almost tear the void apart. The Yuanying's hand imprisoned the area in front of the Xianshu ancient beast. He wanted to kill this fierce ancient beast. Seeing the profound water ancient beast's body dim and its entire body stagnant in midair, Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He knew that the two methods were effective. He may not be able to kill the ancient beast, but he could at least block it. Just as this joy was born, pooh! The spear actually avoided Xiao Hua's right leg and pierced Xiao Hua's back, causing a sharp pain. Chapter 3456. This spear was different from before. A sharpness pierced straight into Xiao Hua's heart. Xiao Hua couldn't help but shudder from the pain. Just as his wishful staff trembled slightly, the black water ancient beast suddenly turned its head. Its two dark green eyes actually showed a hint of cunning. The most unforgettable thing for Xiao Hua was that the ancient beast's figure turned into thousands of small dots. These small dots rushed through the shackles of the Yuanying stage's hand, and even dodged the wishful staff's attack, and instantly rushed into Xiao Hua's golden body. Rumble! The countless tiny droplets rushed to the location of Xiao Hua's golden body. Every single droplet let out an intense rumbling sound, and a hole of several zhong in size appeared in Xiao Hua's chest. A sharp pain came, and Xiao Hua once again looked down in disbelief. This was the first time he had been so seriously injured. Inside the hole, the flesh and blood were badly mutilated, and wisps of black light and devil chi lingered between the flesh and blood. There was not a drop of blood, but even so, an indescribable dizziness came from Xiao Hua's mind, and immediately the entire Transcendence golden body collapsed rapidly. Not only that, after the war puppet spear was pulled out, it pierced towards the back of Xiao Hua's head. After the ancient beast's figure appeared behind Xiao Hua, it also followed the spear and prepared to pounce on Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was in danger. At the critical moment, there was a blood-curdling scream, "Little monk!" With this cry, there was less vigilance, more trust, and more deep regret. With this cry, the entire ventilation channel was filled with a strong wind, and wisps of noble chi condensed from the void. This noble chi was golden in color, almost like water. Xiao Hua helplessly fell to the ground. Although the huge Transcendence golden body had not completely collapsed, the hole in his abdomen could still be seen. Xiao Hua's face was full of pain, and he covered the wound with his hand. Although there was no blood flowing out, the scars were really scary. Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked weakly into the distance. He saw Xine crazily raising the golden hairpin in her hand, and her mouth continuously spitting out true chi. The true chi was first golden, then mixed with pink, and finally, it was blood red. Under Xine's control, the golden hairpin emitted a brilliant golden light that was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. Looking at the center of the sun's golden light, an orange red that looked like a red heart appeared. This red heart instantly transformed into tiny heart dots that rushed out of the golden light. The moment these red hearts appeared, the golden light immediately transformed into golden flying swords. Each flying sword flashed with the shape of a heart, and each heart had a trace of blood in it. The tens of thousands of flying swords were like a torrent, or a river of stars. They rushed towards the Xianshu ancient beast, and wherever the river of swords passed, the golden chi that had appeared earlier would gather. The river of stars became even more majestic, and the flying swords became even sharper. A courageous and fearless feeling filled the entire space. Hiss! The Xianshu ancient beast raised its head and let out a long hiss. Its eyes were filled with vigilance. It opened its mouth and a stream of blue water poured down. Countless blue lights appeared and protected its body. As for the battle avatar, It pulled out its spear and waved it in front of it, as if it wanted to resist the river of swords. The golden light was vast and mighty, and the sword chi was like a forest. The river of stars rushed through the passage and swept past Xiao Hua's head. It easily shattered the Xianshui ancient beast's domain, and like a wave, it drowned the Xianshui ancient beast. The battle avatar's spear was unable to block the river of swords. Although the battle avatar's body flashed with blue light as it tried its best to resist, soon, countless flying swords pierced through its body, and the battle avatar was riddled with holes. However, the moment the Xianshui ancient beast was drowned by the river of swords, it did the same thing as when it attacked Xiao Hua. Its entire body quickly turned into tens of thousands of fireflies. Although many of the fireflies were destroyed by the river of swords, there were still a few that survived. After the entire golden river of swords passed, the golden hairpin's golden light disappeared and fell into Xian's hand. Xian's face was abnormally pale, and she was as dispirited as Xiao Hua. Clearly, the price of activating the golden hairpin was too great. The battle avatar fell to the ground and scattered into a ball. It could no longer fight. Before the battle avatar, the Xianshui ancient beast, which had almost turned into nothingness, reappeared. Although its form was almost completely gone, the dim dots gathered together again. A Xianshui ancient beast that was much smaller than before appeared again. What made Xian feel even more despair was that the four walls gradually flashed with a dark green brilliance. The brilliance was like fireflies that pounced on the Xianshui ancient beast's body. In just a few breaths, the Xianshui ancient beast's body gradually filled up, and its eyes gradually shone with a dark green brilliance. This brilliance was ferocious and cruel as it coldly looked at Xiao Hua and Xian. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua's injuries were very serious, and his body's recovery was also very slow. Clearly, he was affected by the array of the Xianshui palace. Xiao Hua had to whisper to the green-robed Xiao Hua, who was host to his nascent soul, "I wonder if you can control the spirit-slaying Yuan light?" "Humph, why would I need the spirit-slaying Yuan light? Watch I's methods." The nascent soul sneered. It opened its mouth and a small cauldron flew out. This was Xiao Hua's life treasure. Now the green-robed Xiao Hua, who was also a nascent soul, had erased the imprint inside. As the nascent soul pointed its finger, the small cauldron flew out with a five-colored flame. It surrounded the Xianshui ancient beast and burned fiercely. Hiss! The Xianshui ancient beast hissed, and its body uncontrollably expanded. The green fireflies also effortlessly penetrated the flame. It was very obvious that this cauldron could not compete with the ancient array. "I'm afraid only the spiritual fire is left." Xiao Hua's eyes were a little dizzy, and he secretly said to the green-robed Xiao Hua. The green-robed Xiao Hua was helpless. He smiled bitterly and said, "Only fellow Taoist can control that thing. I have the will but not the power." Xiao Hua's current situation was very strange. His body was injured and he could not use his magic power. On the other hand, the nascent soul that supported his magic power could leave his body under the green-robed Xiao Hua's control. However, if Xiao Hua controlled the nascent soul, this nascent soul would not have any magic power to control it. But Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and his mind turned dark. It was as if he was about to faint. In his blurry eyes, he saw the Xianshui ancient beast quickly take shape. His mouth was incomparably bitter. He unconsciously raised his eyes to look at the similarly helpless Xian. The two of them looked at each other and saw helplessness and despair in each other's eyes. This ancient Xianshui palace was indeed extraordinary. It was comparable to the spirit-severing stage Xiao Hua. Xian, who had a great treasure in her hand, fought until the end, but in the end, she could not defy the heavens. "Oh?" Suddenly, a shocked expression appeared on Xian's face. Then, this shocked expression turned into pleasant surprise. She slightly raised her hand and pointed at Xiao Hua's head. Xiao Hua was also stunned. He raised his head with difficulty, but all he saw was a flickering blue ripple of light. Within the ripple of light, there was the back of the Xianshui ancient beast. The back of the figure unwillingly spread its wings and its strong tail circled in the air a few times before disappearing into the blue ripple. But at this moment, Xiao Hua's vision turned slightly dark. He actually felt like he was about to faint. The green-robed Xiao Hua did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly controlled his nascent soul to enter his dantian and urged Xiao Hua to take out the pill from the space. When Xiao Hua sent the green-robed Xiao Hua into the space, before he could take out the pill, a wisp of fragrance came from his mouth and nose. Xian's slightly tired voice sounded in Xiao Hua's ear. Little monk, this is the origin replenishing pill of my Confucian cultivator. It is a panacea for repairing the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. You were injured by the Xianshu A ancient beast. You should hurry and take it, right? Benefactor Xian, you take it first. Xiao Hua slightly propped himself up and pushed her away. Xian said unhappily, I just used too much of my essence. I don't need this origin replenishing pill. You take it first. I will immediately take other medicines. Okay, Xiao Hua nodded. He took the origin replenishing pill and put it into his mouth without looking at it carefully. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, a sizzling sound came from Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua's body shook violently. Oh no! Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He immediately understood that the origin replenishing pill's medicinal power was conflicting with the blood-dripping paradise's demonic blood in his blood. Xiao Hua hurriedly withdrew the blood-dripping paradise. When the demonic blood was completely absorbed, Xiao Hua's body instantly produced thousands of tiny whirlpools. While the origin replenishing pill was repairing Xiao Hua's viscera, it also produced a powerful suction force. It produced an awe-inspiring aura out of thin air and entered Xiao Hua's body. The sizzling sound fell into Xian's ears. Xian acted as if she didn't hear it. She took out a jade box from her bosom and poured out some pink powder from the jade box to consume. After only a cup of tea's worth of time, a dark red color slowly appeared on her cheeks. During this period of time, Xiao Hua's abdomen gradually healed. When the surface of the wound couldn't be seen, Xiao Hua took out another set of clothes from the space. He didn't have a monk's robe. He also didn't dare to take out a Taoist robe. He only found an ordinary scholar's robe. Xiao Hua checked a little and couldn't help but bitterly smile. His body was indeed powerful. It was really like what the Back Earth Village's elder Wu said. He had reached the realm of a demigod. Just now, the fatal blow from the mysterious water ancient beast and the 2 stabs from the battle puppet couldn't take his life. His body was currently rapidly recovering, especially his blood vessels. The blood-dripping paradise was even crazier. It had already recovered his blood vessels a step ahead of his body. However, this kind of recovery was not without a price. This recovery consumed Xiao Hua's essence. Although this essence could be replenished with extremely rare spirit pills, the most important thing was to rely on the accumulation of one's own cultivation. The path of essence didn't have any special shortcuts. Normally, one could only rely on the accumulation of years and months of bitter cultivation. Even so, Xiao Hua's most seriously injured internal organs still couldn't be repaired in time. Xiao Hua's body had the celestial body bestowment technique, his meridians had the Dao sex cultivation method, and his blood vessels had the demon realm's blood-dripping paradise. However, these internal organs didn't have a specialized cultivation method. They could only be repaired by relying on the body. Xian's Chaoyuan pill was very effective. It had already repaired the most basic outline of the severely damaged internal organs. However, at this time, the Chaoyuan pill had already lost its effect. The remaining parts could only be slowly repaired by the celestial body bestowment technique. Chapter 3457. It's really a loss. Xiao Hua checked. Thinking about the danger just now, he still had a kind of lingering fear. If he didn't have Xian's golden hairpin, that black water ancient beast would have pounced again and his body would have been injured again. His body might have a strong recovery ability, but it couldn't withstand too much damage. If he was attacked by the black water ancient beast and the battle puppet a few more times like this, he really would have fallen here. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua couldn't help but secretly curse. This black water ancient beast is too insidious? It actually used a diversion tactic? No, it's besieging way to rescue Zhao. No, it's loosening the reins only to grasp them better. This kind of trick, I have to think about for a long time. This guy can actually do it in an instant. It really became a demon. However, although Xian's golden hairpin is powerful, it's obvious that Xian can't fully activate it. The black water ancient beast still has the strength to fight in the end, but why did it flee in panic? Little monk. When Xiaohua was thinking, Xian opened her mouth. Thank you for just now. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid it bodes ill rather than well. Alas, don't say any more, Benefactor Xian. Xiaohua waved his hand. That was the black water ancient beast's plan to loosen the reins only to grasp them better. Its main goal is still this little monk. Speaking of this little monk still has to thank you for your help. If it wasn't for you, this little monk would have gone to see my family's Buddha. Xian looked at Xiaohua with a somewhat complicated gaze and asked tentatively, Little monk, don't be modest. If you see your family's Buddha, won't I see my family's saint? You and I are now in the same boat. How can we not help each other? Right, how's the effect of the Chow Yuan pill? Why do I see that your complexion is not as good as I expected? Xiaohua naturally heard the meaning behind Xian's words, but he didn't intend to say it clearly. He smiled and said, Benefactor's Chow Yuan pill is really effective. This little monk's extremely injured internal organs have now been repaired. There's no major problem for the time being. After we find a way out, this little monk will return to the temple to recuperate. And this Chow Yuan pill is a sacred medicine for us Confucian cultivators to consolidate the essence of the foundation. If the 5 qi is insufficient, the 5 elements are damaged, and the foundation of the true qi is broken, this pill can be used to heal. Even an injury like the little monk's would have been completely healed if there wasn't anything strange about it. Xian nodded her head slightly as she said this with a double meaning. Xiaohua acted as if he didn't hear the meaning behind Xian's words. He smiled and said, Perhaps my Buddhist sect. Just as he said this, Xiaohua was suddenly shocked. His smile froze on his face as he looked at Xian in confusion and hastily asked, Fellow immortal Xian, you said. What do you mean by insufficient 5 qi and damaged 5 elements? What was the foundation of true energy? What does this have to do with the damage to the internal organs? The corner of Xian's mouth hung a smile. Her eyes revealed a trace of craftiness. She wasn't trying to probe Xiaohua's Confucian cultivation base. After all, cultivators who cultivated both Buddhism and Confucianism, Taoism and Confucianism were not uncommon in hidden immortal continent and Western paradise. What she wanted to know was the details of Xiaohua's devil qi. But even so, Xiaohua's words still revealed his Confucian cultivation base. Isn't the little monk a disciple of the Buddhist sect? Why are you so interested in the secrets of our Confucian cultivators? Xian didn't answer the question, but asked instead. Holy shit, secrets? Once he heard the secrets, the greedy Xiaohua's heart itched like a cat scratching it. Cough, cough. Xiaohua pitifully hugged his abdomen with his hand, coughed twice and said, This little monk was only curious. Previously, I only heard that Confucian cultivators only needed to cultivate a lump of righteous qi in their chest to be able to shake the heavens and move the earth, but I didn't expect that this true energy had something to do with the internal organs. Little monk, have you ever burned a fire before? Xian suddenly asked a seemingly unrelated question. Who would have thought that Xiaohua would very naturally answer? Of course, this little monk has been a farmer since childhood. Chopping firewood, burning fire, weeding, plowing, there's nothing that I don't know. Ah? Xian was stunned. At the same time, Xiaohua himself was also stunned. The two of them opened their mouths, and the shape of their mouths was very similar. This little monk is really pitiful. Xian reacted, thinking that Xiaohua was joking. She very pitifully said, Then what does this little monk use to burn a fire in his house? Xiaohua returned to his senses and thoughtfully said, Naturally it's withered branches and dry firewood. If it's winter, perhaps there's also some withered grass, or even dried wheat straw. Wheat straw. Xian naturally didn't know what wheat straw was, but she also didn't want to ask. She nodded and said, Since this fire is lit by these withered branches and dry firewood, then without these, wouldn't it be impossible to start a fire? Ordinary people naturally can't. Xiaohua slightly frowned, as if he somewhat understood. That's right. Under the Great Tao, we are all ordinary people. Xian hit the nail on the head. Although the noble qi of us Confucian cultivators is true qi, it's not the same as the true qi of the Taoist sect. The difference is not only that Confucian cultivators cultivate the noble qi, but also that the true qi of Confucian cultivators isn't a wood without roots or a fire without a source. You're saying. Xiaohua suddenly felt that it was a bit inconceivable. His tone was somewhat stuttering. Your Confucian cultivator's true qi isn't purely refining the noble qi, but refining the 5 viscera and 6 bowels, using the 5 viscera and 6 bowels to produce true qi, and then refining it in the middle dantian? The heart hides the spirit, the ho tian is the spirit, the xian tian is the etiquette, the emptiness is the sorrow, the southern red emperor's fire qi is the origin. The liver hides the soul, the ho tian is the wandering soul, the xian tian is the benevolence, the emptiness is the happiness, the eastern green woods wood qi is the origin. The spleen hides the intent, the ho tian is the delusion, the xian tian is the faith, the emptiness is the desire, the central yellow emperor's earth qi is the origin. The lungs hides the soul, the ho tian is the ghost soul, the xian tian is the righteousness, the emptiness is the anger, the western white emperor's metal qi is the origin. The kidney hides the essence, the ho tian is the turbid essence, the xian tian is the wisdom, the emptiness is the happiness, the northern black emperor's water qi is the origin. Xian's face suddenly showed a dignified expression, and she recited word by word. This is the so-called 5 qi origin of our Confucian cultivators. Cultivating this 5 qi origin is the fundamental great Tao of our Confucian cultivators. But, Xiaohua bit his lips. He didn't have time to think about why Xian would reveal the secrets of Confucian cultivators to him at this time, and hurriedly asked, why? Are there not so many records of Confucian cultivators in the ancient books? Only talk about refining true qi? Xian didn't answer, but instead said with a smile, Little monk, you seem to know a lot about our Confucian cultivation method. Correct. Xiaohua nodded. This little monk has dabbled in a lot, and once practiced Confucian cultivation method, even. Puff. Xiaohua opened his mouth, and a tiny azure light flew out, like a flying sword. It turned half a circle in the air, and then fell into Xiaohua's mouth. Sure enough. Xian slightly nodded. You actually practiced to the point of transforming metal qi into a sword, really good. But what? Xiaohua asked. Xian faintly smiled. But this little monk is the same as the majority of people in the hidden immortal continent. He practiced it wrong. Oh, it can't be said that he practiced it wrong. It should be that he practiced it wrong. What do you mean? Xiaohua asked again. Xian also didn't hide it, and explained, this little monk seems to also have a Taoist cultivation. Presumably, you also practice Confucian cultivators' true qi as Taoists' true qi, right? Yes. Xiaohua also didn't hide it. Not only that, this little monk also practiced heaven and earth origin qi as noble qi. Now I ask benefactor to explain. I don't dare to say that I can explain, I only know that the people in the world are increasingly utilitarian, and increasingly impatient. On one hand, they give up the foundation of the 5 qis unification, and only pursue the refinement of true qi, emphasizing the power of cultivation method. On the other hand, they purely pursue the pinnacle of the 5 qis, disdaining the benevolence of the balance of the 5 qis, and have long lost the original intention of Confucian cultivators. Xian lightly said, in fact, in the early years, Taoist sect stole the cultivation method from us Confucian cultivators, and created the method of using meridians to refine true qi, and condensing true qi in my lower dantian. This is originally the inferior method. Now, we Confucian cultivators have actually seen the power of Taoist sect's magic, and once again, we only practice true qi, and give up the 5 qis unification. How can we achieve the great Tao? What? You said that Taoist sect's cultivation method was stolen from you Confucian cultivators' 5 qis unification? Xiaohua laughed involuntarily, feeling very absurd. This is an old legend, and it's not something I can make up. Xian said in all seriousness. I also don't know if it's true or not. That's nonsense. Xiaohua shook his head. One is the refinement of meridians, the other is the refinement of the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. It can only be said that they are different methods to achieve the same result. How can it be stolen? Could it be that only Confucian cultivators have the good fortune of heaven and earth, and that true qi is the true essence of heaven and earth? This. Xian hesitated slightly, staring at Xiaohua for a moment, and then said, the refinement of the 5 viscera and 6 bowels is different from the refinement of meridians, and the origin of true qi, perhaps, is not the noble qi. Then what is it? Xiao Hua retorted sarcastically. Exine faintly smiled, her eyes like the moon. Why should I tell you? Little monk. We were just casually chatting. Have your injuries healed? Can we enter the real profound water palace now? As she spoke, Exine pointed at the messy stone wall not far away, where a triangular blue brilliance was slowly emerging. Needless to say, it was the exit of the passage. Are we going in now? Xiao Hua knew that Exine would definitely not tell him the secrets of Confucian cultivators in full detail. Now that she had said so much, it was already a kind of repayment to him. If he continued to ask, he would only be met with disdain. Thus he no longer thought about it, and looked at the revealed exit with a bitter smile. We are all injured, so how can we take away the immortal tool? Haha, little monk, you really want that immortal tool? Exine laughed. You can't even defeat the ancient profound water beast guarding the door, so how can you take away the immortal tool? Let's go, don't think so much. Follow me in and see if there is the person I'm looking for. If there is, little monk, you can help me. Oh, don't worry, I definitely don't want any immortal tool, I just want to save people. If there isn't, we'll find the exit and leave, okay? Chapter 3458. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, You also want to save a Confucian cultivator? That person. Forget it. Who cares what he does? If I can help this little monk, then I will. However, you are also injured now. You relied on that golden hairpin's imperial weapon? Correct. Exine saw that Xiao Hua did not ask about that person's origin and was quite satisfied. She nodded and said, That golden hairpin is exactly what I relied on. This item consumes a lot of true qi and profound qi. With my cultivation, I can only use it 2.5 times. Previously, I didn't help in time because I was hesitating. This little monk once heard that the hidden immortal continent has 10 great imperial weapons. Your golden hairpin doesn't seem to be one of them. Can it be so powerful? Xiao Hua asked in disbelief. The so-called 10 great imperial weapons are just a joke. Exine coldly snorted. How can an outsider know the background of my Confucian family? Xiao Hua stood up. The triangular light had already taken shape. There seemed to be a door in the light, but neither Xiao Hua's eyes nor divine sense could see it. The two walked in front of the light. Xiao Hua frowned and said, Exine, are you sure that this door is an immortal weapon? Or can we find the exit from the immortal weapon? No. Exine's face showed a trace of excitement. Who knows what's inside? This might even be the exit of the profound water palace. But since we've already reached here, can we still stop? Exine waved her hand and the golden hairpin appeared in her hand again. She said, Little monk, you go in first. Why me? Xiao Hua jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. He said, My injuries are worse than yours. You're still holding an imperial weapon that's even more powerful than the 10 great imperial weapons. I'm a woman, you're a man. Exine crossed her arms and said with a smile. But you want to save your lover. There's no reason for me to take the lead, right? Xiao Hua still shouted. Exine's face was slightly red. She rolled her eyes at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice, Who said I want to save my lover? That person is my relative. Oh. So it's like this. Xiao Hua felt very strange. His heart relaxed for no reason. He thought about it and waved his hand. He took out the wishful staff and urged the golden light to protect his body. He stepped into the light. However, just as Xiao Hua's figure touched the light shadow, a golden light appeared from the top of his head and quickly swept through his body. Then it disappeared. Xiao Hua's figure also disappeared. Could it be that I saw it? Exine frowned slightly. This is the Devil Buster golden light of the Dao sect. Since the little monk has devil chi on him, why hasn't he been killed by the Devil Buster golden light? Even if he wasn't killed, he wouldn't, to go in, right? Exine thought to herself. Her footsteps were not slow. She held the golden hairpin in her hand and entered the light door. As Exine's figure disappeared, the light door suddenly shrank and disappeared. Xiao Hua naturally did not know that the golden light was the devil-expelling golden light of the Tao sect. He only felt that as the golden light flashed, his eyes were slightly dazzled, and an overflowing scenery seemed to flow by like the wind. Soon after, his entire body felt light, and before he could focus his eyes and see anything, he felt an indescribable warm current erupting from the bottom of his feet. It did not care about his meridians or blood vessels as it rushed towards the top of his head. In just an instant, this warm current had penetrated through his body. Xiao Hua's internal organs were ironed by this warm current, and there was not a single place that did not stick. His 36,000 pores felt as if they had eaten a ginseng fruit, and there was not a single pore that was not carefree. In addition to the comfort, Xiao Hua didn't care about the situation around him anymore. He hurriedly checked. What he almost couldn't believe was that not only was his Yuanying, which had lost a lot of true qi, now in high spirits, but his seriously injured internal organs were also in good condition. Where was the serious injury before entering the door? How is this possible? Xiao Hua was shocked. He didn't dare to believe that when this golden light swept through his body, all his injuries were healed. Could it be that this is the power of an immortal artifact? As he thought about this, Xiao Hua hurriedly looked up. He saw that Xiao Hua was in a huge palace. The entire palace was dazzling with gold and jade. 81 huge coiling dragon pillars supported the entire palace. Around the palace, there were 81 flying phoenix curtains covering the 4 walls. At this moment, Xiao Hua was standing at the entrance of the palace. The palace door, which was hundreds of feet tall, was inscribed with countless simple and unadorned runes. These runes were the same as the runes on the flow of water in the passageway earlier. They were flowing at varying speeds. Following this flow, mountains, rivers, water, flowers, birds, insects, and fish all appeared on the palace door and even on the walls nearby. Every time a light flashed, it was as if a small world had appeared. Xiao Hua slightly furrowed his brows when he saw all these living creatures appear. He was somewhat unable to understand whether these runes were real or not. He had never seen the runes of a formation show such an abnormality. But soon after, his heart shook again. My Tao Sex formation has always borrowed the power of the world. However, the power of the world is ultimately limited and is limited to this part of the world. If I really want to take another step forward, I'll have to transcend the world. Could it be that this ancient formation has already surpassed my knowledge? This profound water palace that guards the immortal artifact can actually borrow the power of a small world? If that's the case, then a formation formed from tens of thousands of small worlds isn't something that can be broken by ordinary people. The one who set up this formation must be an immortal. Little monk, what are you thinking about? Why don't you go in? Xian's voice came from behind Xiao Hua just as he was pondering. This little monk is wondering whether this is the profound water palace. Xiao Hua's eyes turned as he answered with a smile. Nonsense. Xian raised her brows for no reason. She pointed at the signboard above the palace door and said, Don't you see it? Isn't it written with the words Profound Water Palace? If this isn't the Profound Water Palace, then, where is it? If this is the Profound Water Palace, then why did the golden light just now seem to have the Confucian school's 5 elements restoration technique? And why is it different from the Tao Sex formation golden light? Xiao Hua looked up again. He really didn't pay attention to the signboard above the palace door. Sure enough, at the place where Xian was pointing, there was a huge glittering golden plaque at the top of the palace door, with the words Mystic Water Palace written on it. That's not right. Xiao Hua's gaze swept over the signboard and was shocked because the words written on it were the Tao Sex characters from the Dawn Rain continent. They were completely different from the hidden immortal continent's inscriptions. He didn't know how Xian could recognize them. Xian didn't know about Xiao Hua's doubts. She looked at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, That golden light is the supreme golden light of the Confucian cultivators. It is also one of the secrets of the Confucian cultivators that I didn't tell you. Not only can this golden light repair your internal organs, even if your physical body completely disappears and only your soul is left, this golden light can instantly heal you. How is that possible? Xiao Hua was in disbelief. If you don't believe me, you can try. Why don't you let the profound water ancient beast kill you and only leave your soul behind? Xian smiled. Alas, The ancient said that a woman's heart is the most poisonous in the world. This little monk just saved you and you actually cursed this little monk like this. This little monk really has nothing to say. Xiao Hua sighed and said with regret. Humph, you're still a little monk. Xian pointed at the signboard above the palace door and sneered. This is the ancient Tao sex language. It's lost in the hidden immortal continent and western paradise. If that Ci Hui came here, she probably wouldn't recognize it. You actually recognize it, yet you still dare to call yourself a little monk? Fine. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. I admit that I have some Tao sex cultivation. Tao sex cultivation is even higher than Buddhist sex cultivation. However, I didn't hide this from you. When I repelled the profound water ancient beast, I also used it in front of you. Alas, fellow immortal. Xian sighed and said, at this point, you finally spoke the truth. This concubine thought that you would continue to hide it from this concubine. Seeing that Xian actually called herself this concubine, Xiao Hua's eyeballs were about to fall out. He blinked his eyes in disbelief and stared at Xian. What are you looking at? Xian rolled her eyes at Xiao Hua and scolded. There are no flowers on this concubine's face. Yes. Xiao Hua rubbed his nose. He knew that Xian was returning the favor. It's this one's eyes that grew flowers. Alas, actually, this concubine shouldn't blame fellow immortal. Xian sighed. Isn't this concubine also hiding her identity? Fellow immortal Xian. When Xiao Hua heard this, he hastily waved his hand and said anxiously, don't say any more. This one has some misgivings and can't tell fellow immortal Xian about her identity. If you do, this one won't be able to return the favor. A trace of hidden bitterness appeared on Xian's face. She glanced at Xiao Hua, then lowered her head to look at the ground and said in a low voice, since this concubine entered Sage River, fellow immortal Xian has saved my life many times. If it weren't for fellow immortal Xian, this concubine would have turned into a skeleton in Sage River long ago. In the face of fellow immortal Xian's kindness of rebirth, how could this concubine have the face to ask fellow immortal Xian's identity? However, if this concubine didn't tell fellow immortal Xian about her identity, how could this concubine have the face to follow fellow immortal Xian into this profound water palace? How could this concubine have the face to ask fellow immortal Xian to help save this concubine's loved ones from that immortal artifact? All right. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and nodded slightly. Fellow immortal Xian, if you feel guilty, feel free to say it. Otherwise, it will be detrimental to your mental state. As for the matter of helping, why should fellow immortal Xian bring it up again? Since we've arrived at the profound water palace, this one will naturally lend fellow immortal Xian a hand. If fellow immortal Xian doesn't mind, then please call this concubine Xian. Xian said with a smile. This fellow immortal Xian sounds very distant. Of course. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said, if fellow immortal Xian doesn't mind, you can also call this one Xiao Hua. Just treat it as a flower in fellow immortal Xian's hair. When Xian heard this, she couldn't help but feel slightly angry. However, she immediately thought of something, and her hair drooped down while her face turned slightly red. Chapter 3459. Bad. When Xiao Hua saw this, he complained bitterly in his heart. Damn it, how could my mouth be so slippery? How could I say these things so casually? Not to mention Hongxia Fairy, even the late Xue. Just as Xiao Hua was regretting, Xian raised her head again. Her face was red, but she still had a resolute expression as she said, Xiao Hua, I, a Confucian sage, have said that a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. You've saved this concubine several times, so this concubine should repay you with her body. However, this concubine feels that my humble appearance cannot enter your eyes. Moreover, this concubine has a heavy responsibility. Before rescuing Jia Yan, this concubine doesn't dare to mention this important matter. Don't. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand. His face and neck were red as he said, this concubine never meant that. This concubine was only joking. Don't take it seriously. Since your father is being suppressed in the profound water palace, you and I should hurry in and rescue him. Xian's eyes flashed with gratitude. but there was also a trace of disappointment. However, she slightly smiled and cleverly concealed it. She said, "This concubine's heart is in a mess right now. Young master, please don't take my words to heart." As she spoke, she looked at the door of the profound water palace again, not daring to take a step forward. "Exen, what are you afraid of?" Xiaohua frowned and asked, puzzled. "Alas." Exen sighed again. "To tell you the truth, this concubine was born in a second-rank Confucian family in the hidden immortal continent. Since childhood, this concubine has enjoyed a luxurious life. Young master may not know the splendor and wealth that this concubine has enjoyed. Even the princess of a country may not be able to compare to this concubine. Oh, I don't know if young master has heard of the Cha Nu kingdom in the hidden immortal continent. The power behind that kingdom is a branch of my Xian clan. Their princess is simply not worthy of being in my Xian clan. Alas, this concubine is talking too far. When this concubine grew up and could cultivate, this concubine not only read all the ancient books in the clan, but also learned some Taoist magic by analogy. At a young age, this concubine entered the realm of refining essence into qi. When this concubine's cultivation was successful, the clan passed down my Xian clan's gold essence cultivation technique. This gold qi gathering art is very difficult to cultivate, and it has always been exclusively cultivated by the men in the tribe. However, in my hands it is like a smooth path for me. The bottlenecks that many others encounter do not even exist in my eyes. Thinking back to that time, I really felt like I was a heavenly beauty. Your aptitude is much better than this little student's. Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. What's the use of having good aptitude? Cultivation is just cultivation, nothing more. A bitter look appeared on Xian's face, and she said, "I wholeheartedly practiced, wanting to refine the gold qi into the 5 qis unification realm. So, I searched for ancient books and secret arts in the clan and even in the hidden immortal continent, wanting to see the mystery of Confucian cultivation. However, when I found a trace of truth that was buried in time, I found another big secret in the clan." At this point, Xian looked at Xiaohua. "Presumably, young master already knows what the secret is, right?" Xiaohua nodded. "It's not like I have a pig's head. How could I not guess? Alas, I never thought that a second-rank aristocratic family would actually hide such filthy things." Xian sighed more than once. "My father was originally a candidate for the position of clan head, but the current clan head, in order to fight for this position, actually tricked my father into coming here in the name of treasure hunting, and then used an immortal tool to suppress him. And in order to cover up his crime, he pretended to be fond of me. He never rejected my requests and agreed to all of them. If I didn't obtain the ink cloud pupil personally written by my father, how would I know the big secret of this world?" Seeing the always strong Xian become so weak, and the bitterness in her heart poured out, Xiaohua couldn't help but take a deep breath and say, "Poor Xian. I didn't think that you had so many difficulties in your heart. Previously, you hid so many secrets, and this little student thought that you coveted the immortal tool, but I didn't think." At this point, Xiaohua couldn't say anything more. He felt that he really let Xian down. "Young master, don't blame yourself." Xian raised her head, tears in the corners of her eyes. "It's all in the past. You just need to believe me from now on. But now, I'm standing in front of the profound water palace. My wish of so many years is about to come true, but I'm still a bit nervous. I don't know what I'll be facing. Or will it all be for nothing?" Xian didn't dare to continue. At this moment, she felt her hand warm as a large hand grasped her trembling cold hand. Xiaohua's voice sounded in her ear. "Don't be afraid, Xian. You didn't dare to say it before because you were afraid of danger at any time. You were even more afraid of delaying the chance to save your father, so you always faced it alone. And now you have me. The ancients were right. If 2 people share happiness, there'll be 2. If 2 people share pain, there'll be 2 halves. This little student is willing to share this pain with you and reduce your pain by half. Many thanks, young master." Xian was momentarily dazed by the sight of the profound water palace. After saying so much, her heart felt somewhat empty. However, when she heard Xiaohua's words of comfort, her heart suddenly felt full. Although the words "young master" didn't refer to Little Blossom, They contained a lot of meaning. Let's go in. Xiao Hua raised his head and narrowed his eyes. Since we're already here, we have to face reality. Even if it's an immortal artifact, this little student wants to flip it over and see what it's like. Young master, you're so bold. Xian praised. She gently pulled her hand out of Xiao Hua's grasp, and then took out the golden hairpin from her hair. She smiled and said, however, young master only needs to help this concubine rescue Jiayan from the suppression of the immortal tool. There's no need to overturn the immortal tool. Xiao Hua smiled, raised his eyes to look at the enormous palace doors, and walked in. Contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, there was no obstruction at the entrance. There was no radiance or ripples of magic power. It was no different from the entrance of an ordinary palace. Xian naturally followed him into the profound water palace. As soon as she entered, she immediately looked around with an extremely anxious expression on her face. Xian, don't be anxious. Xiao Hua reminded her, since we've already entered, it's best to be careful. Don't lose your composure because of this. Xian took a deep breath and nodded. You're right, young master. I don't know why, but my mind has been in chaos over and over again today. I'm afraid it's because I'm about to see my father, right? Alas, this little student originally wanted to search for the immortal artifact separately from you. But now it seems like we can only go together. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and shook his head slightly. Xian lowered her head in embarrassment and looked at the ground. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. I'll listen to young master's instructions. Let's go. We'll start searching from the left. Xiao Hua waved his hand and led Xian towards the left side of the profound water palace. The floor of the profound water palace was paved with huge bluestones, each of them dozens of feet in size. The edges of every bluestone were covered with strange runes. These runes were golden in color, and they flowed as Xiao Hua and Xian walked. Although Xiao Hua couldn't sense any ripples of magic power from these runes, he believed that the restrictions within the profound water palace were definitely more formidable than any of the previous passages. First, they arrived before a coiling dragon pillar. Xiao Hua and Xian's gazes fell on the pillar and the coiling dragon. The pillar itself didn't have any radiance, but the coiling dragon's muscular body emitted a faint golden light. This golden light seemed to come from the coiling dragon's scales and body. The huge dragon head that coiled its way up the pillar had its bloody mouth open and was facing the top of the palace. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and touched the coiling dragon pillar. An extremely cold feeling came from his palm. Xiao Hua frowned slightly and slowly withdrew his hand. After that, the two of them circled the pillar a few more times. However, they didn't find anything strange about the pillar. The two of them looked at each other and didn't seem to be disappointed. Soon after, they continued walking forward. The palace was huge. The two of them walked for the time it took to burn a stick of incense before they arrived at a high platform with more than 10 steps. Above the platform was a small space with a golden seat. Xiao Hua and Xian were facing the other side of the palace that they hadn't explored before. Xiao Hua looked up and said to Xian, "It seems that the immortal artifact isn't below the platform." Xian didn't pay attention to Xiao Hua. Instead, she looked at the golden seat on the platform and bit her lip. It was unknown what she was thinking. Xiao Hua didn't dare to disturb her. He stopped and waited quietly at the side. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Xian spoke. "Young master, if I'm not mistaken, the immortal artifact should be beside the golden seat. Or perhaps, this golden seat is the immortal artifact itself." "It can't be? This seat is the immortal artifact?" Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. Isn't the appearance of the immortal artifact a little too low? If young master doesn't believe me, we can go forward and take a look. Xian slightly tightened her grip on the golden hairpin in her right hand and said with a forced smile. Okay. Xiao Hua nodded. He lifted his leg and said while walking, "This young man doesn't believe." However, before he could finish his words, his raised leg stopped in midair. Because a layer of invisible restriction appeared out of thin air above the high platform, blocking Xiao Hua and Xian below the high platform. "Young master, move aside. Let me take a look." Xian saw that there was something strange about the platform. Instead of being surprised, she was happy. She took a few steps to the side and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Her originally black and white eyes gradually grew golden threads. Those golden threads grew more and more until her entire pupil turned golden. Suddenly, Xiao Hua's vision blurred. It seemed that Xian had blinked. Her pupils suddenly shook and two golden pupils overlapped each other. Immediately, Xian slowly walked to the front of the platform. She looked up and down, left and right. Moreover, she looked while walking, as if she was looking for a flaw in the restriction. After looking for half a meal's time, Xian's figure slightly swayed and then she closed her eyes. Xiao Hua was just about to ask with concern when he saw Xian's hand hit the top of her head. Kang! A golden sound soared into the sky. A golden sword appeared in the air along with true energy. Chapter 3460. Xian suddenly raised her arms, and the flying sword suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in Xian's hands. Open! Xian roared without hesitation. She was not inferior to men. A golden light flashed, and the golden sword slashed into the invisible restriction on the stage. Swoosh! With a crisp sound, a straight crack appeared. Immediately after, the left side of the crack flashed rapidly. The light spread out in all directions, and gradually, a golden halo that sealed off the high platform was revealed. Young master! Xian, whose face was full of joy, suddenly shouted, "Quickly give this concubine a hand!" Xiao Hua glanced at the slowly healing crack and answered without hesitation. The staff in his hand slammed down. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and the golden light near the crack immediately turned into golden fragments. A hole in the golden halo was quite eye-catching. Young master, quickly follow this concubine in. Xian seemed to be a little shy. She reached out and grabbed Xiao Hua's sleeve. She wanted to jump through the gap, but just as her figure flew up, she suddenly fell from the air. Xiao Hua's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. His right hand held Xian's waist, and she floated into the gap like a fallen leaf. Many thanks, young master. Xian was very shy, and the golden color in her eyes had not faded. Xiao Hua very naturally looked into Xian's eyes, and a sharp pain like needles piercing his eyes came from them. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to scream, and without waiting for Xian to finish speaking, an unparalleled power, more violent than a flash flood, instantly submerged the two people. Xiao Hua was extremely frightened, and his body involuntarily trembled. His legs could not stand firm, and a deep fear was born from the bottom of his heart. At this time, Xiao Hua did not pay attention to the stinging pain in his eyes, and looked up with difficulty. The platform in front of him was very different from before. Above the golden throne, there was an oval mirror emitting a silvery white brilliance like a bright moon. This brilliance covered the entire platform, and that unparalleled power was emitted from this mirror. Following the brilliance, the entire platform was enveloped in this brilliance. Ah! Kunlun mirror? Xiao Hua was once again stunned. This was already the fourth Kunlun mirror he had seen, right? Plop! Just when Xiao Hua recognized the Kunlun mirror, a soft sound came from beside him. Xian could no longer support herself. Although the palace dress on her body was still emitting a golden jade brilliance, she still collapsed to the ground. The golden hairpin in her hand flashed a few times, but it was silent. Clearly, this golden hairpin was not an immortal tool. Puff! Xiao Hua's left leg slightly trembled, and he also knelt on the ground. Then, his right leg began to tremble rapidly. It was obvious that he could not hold on any longer. Roar! Xiao Hua roared as he waved the wishful staff, trying to resist. Unfortunately, the wishful staff hit the air and seemed to have no effect. Poof! Xiao Hua's hands and feet did not listen to him anymore. His other leg was also paralyzed, and the wishful staff was also thrown to the ground. Xiao Hua was speechless, his heart thumping. Damn, this is the real Kunlun mirror. Although no one is controlling it, even this Zhao's avatar is unable to stand in front of it. Young master. Next to him, Xian fell to the ground and said with difficulty, "It's all this concubine's fault for implicating young master. This concubine really underestimated this immortal tool. I didn't expect this immortal tool to be so powerful. With my cultivation, I can't even stand in front of this immortal tool." How can I save people? Hee hee. Xiaohua also grinned bitterly. This young master is even more arrogant than you. He actually wants to take this immortal tool. Damn, this young master is really a frog at the bottom of a well. Young master has such ambition. One day, you will be able to take this immortal tool. This concubine believes. Xian also forced a smile. Xiaohua looked up and said, in any case at this time except for the Kunlun mirror, there is nothing else. Your father doesn't seem to be here. Speaking of this, Xiaohua did not know how to comfort her. After all, Xiaohua was confident that he did not have the ability to take this immortal tool. Even if Xian's father was here to suppress it, he was afraid that he would be powerless. But since Xian's father was not here to suppress it, where could he be? Xian's disappointment could be imagined. Sure enough, Xian's face instantly paled. Two translucent crystals flashed in her eyes. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but thousands of words and indescribable worries only turned into a sigh. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on Xiaohua's body. He could not move at all. Fear grew in his heart. At this time, not only was Xian's hope of finding her father dashed, even his hope of escaping from the mysterious water palace had become slim. How do I get out? Xiaohua turned his head and swept his gaze over the entire platform. He thought to himself, this Blackwater Palace is a complete palace. It only has one entrance, and this platform is the end of the palace. If there are any exits, they'll all be on this platform. But there is only one golden chair on the platform. Perhaps like the Misty Cloud sect, that chair is a transportation array? Thinking of this, Xiaohua came to a realization. At this time, Xian whispered again, young master, this concubine still has a secret method to activate the golden hairpin. Perhaps it can send you to the golden chair. This concubine has pondered for a long time. Perhaps this golden chair is the secret passage to leave the mysterious water palace. If this young master leaves, what will you do? Can you leave with this young master? Xiaohua did not answer, but asked directly. Xian's face became distressed. It's all this concubine's fault. This concubine doesn't know whether Ci Hui and Great Master Guzhan are dead or alive, but this concubine is willing to send you out. No need. Xiaohua sneered. He clenched his fists and shouted, this young master has his own methods. Let this young master see how powerful this unmanned immortal weapon is. Young master. Xian turned pale with fright. She hurriedly said, young master, don't force yourself. However, Xian's words were too late. Xiaohua's body flashed with golden light. Under the suppression of the immortal weapon, the golden light had become extremely thin. However, as the golden light shone, Xiaohua slowly stood up. At the same time, he used the reflection of heaven and earth mystique. His transcendence golden body expanded inch by inch. Rise! Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed Xian's arm. With another roar, he swung his arm and threw Xian towards the golden chair. Young master. Xian's eyes were filled with tears. Dong! Xian's body hit the golden chair. Then she powerlessly slid back onto the chair. However, to Xiaohua's surprise, not only did the Kunlun mirror in midair not move, but the golden chair itself also did not move. There must be something wrong with the golden chair. Xiaohua's transcendence golden body had been formed. Now, he was slowly walking in the immortal weapon's power. The pair of eyes on his expressionless face moved slightly. When Xiaohua raised his head and saw the Kunlun mirror floating above the golden chair, his heart skipped a beat. With a wave of his hand, the icy mirror flew out from the space. Wang wang. When the icy mirror flew out of the space, a loud roar immediately sounded. Three-colored brilliance instantly rushed out from the icy mirror without Xiaohua's urging. The tri-colored light went straight into the Kunlun mirror. The entire mirror surface of the Kunlun mirror was like boiling water. Rings of seven-colored light rushed out of the mirror surface as if they were overflowing, and spun around the entire platform. Dong! Suddenly, as if a huge hammer hit the Kunlun mirror shook heavily. A silver-white brilliance rushed out from the bottom of the seven-colored brilliance and directly fell on the icy mirror. Like an ice cube that saw sunlight, the ice sea mirror instantly disappeared, leaving behind only a three-colored ball of light. And these three balls of light flew back to the Kunlun mirror like young swallows returning to their nest. Xiaohua watched all of this with his eyes wide open. His connection with the ice sea mirror had been cut off the moment the ice sea mirror flew out of the space. Wang wang wang. The three balls of light fell into the Kunlun mirror. The Kunlun mirror boiled again. This time, the entire Kunlun mirror disappeared and turned into a silver-white ball of light. Shwa! One of the rolling balls of light shone on the golden throne. The golden throne also emitted a brilliance. When a golden halo appeared, Xian, who was inside, disappeared. Good. Seeing this, how could Xiaohua not know that the Kunlun mirror and the golden throne were the key to leaving the mysterious water palace? Xian must have been teleported out. Looking at the halo that was still revolving around the golden throne, Xiaohua hurriedly walked over and finally stepped into the halo before it disappeared. The moment the halo touched Xiaohua's foot, it immediately revolved along Xiaohua's transcendence golden body. With every inch it revolved, Xiaohua's transcendence golden body disappeared. In just a few breaths, the halo rushed to the top of Xiaohua's head, and his transcendence golden body completely disappeared. Where is this? No, this is not Sage Jiangwei. This is where the mysterious water palace just came from. Xiaohua felt dizzy, just like when he was in the teleportation formation. When he opened his eyes, he was dumbfounded. Looking at the familiar triangular mirrors around him, he complained inwardly. Wasn't this the mirror that Xiaohua, Xian, Ci Hui, and Gu Zhan used to avoid the mysterious water ancient beast? Could it be that the Kunlun mirror didn't teleport me out? Xiaohua recalled his avatar and looked around with doubt. What is this? Xiaohua's gaze had just moved away from the mirror when he saw a treasured sword flashing with a milky white brilliance. This treasured sword was more than 9 feet long, and the hilt was 1 foot long. There were dragon and phoenix patterns on it, and a fist-sized heart-shaped object was at the end of the hilt. The blade of the treasured sword was 8 feet long, but it didn't look sharp. In fact, it didn't even seem to be sharpened. There were no spikes at the tip of the sword, only an oval shape. Chapter 3461. The Son of Heaven's Sword. Although this treasured sword didn't show that it was the Son of Heaven's sword, Xiaohua's eyes saw the long sword's great craftsmanship. In his heart, he immediately understood that this must be the Son of Heaven's sword, the Son of Heaven's sword that shook the 9 provinces. So the Son of Heaven's sword was hidden here. Perhaps this is the true profound water palace. Xiaohua pondered as he spoke, his gaze once again moving downwards. The Son of Heaven's sword light was very quiet, but it also had a kind of absolute dominance. A sword light as thick as a thumb pierced through space and rushed down. Far below the Son of Heaven's sword, where it had almost left the surface of the mirror, there was no light. It was like an abyss. There, the Son of Heaven's sword light transformed into a faint sword of light. Below the sword of light was an extremely dim golden sword of light. The tip of the sword was pointed upwards, resisting the sword of light with all its might. Although Xiaohua didn't know what the golden sword of light was, he understood when he saw Xian's faint figure beside it. This was where Xian's father was suppressed by the immortal artifact. The immortal artifact suppressed was none other than the Son of Heaven's sword. Not only was there an immortal artifact in the mysterious water palace, but there were 2 of them. What's going on? Why isn't the Son of Heaven's sword as powerful as the Kunlun mirror? Xiaohua suddenly realized. Also, I can use my divine will. Thinking of this, Xiaohua didn't have time to think anymore. He hurriedly used the wind escape technique to fly down, which was the place he had just flown a few hundred feet. Kacha! A series of crisp sounds came from above his head, all around him and under his feet. The triangular mirror surface flashed with silver-white brilliance one after another. In the end, the entire space turned into an extremely smooth mirror surface. The Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua looked at the incomparably huge mirror surface and a familiar feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. This is inside the Kunlun mirror. I understand now. There is indeed only one immortal artifact in the mysterious water palace, and that is the Kunlun mirror. The Son of Heaven's sword is inside the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua suddenly realized. Young master. At this moment, Xian transmitted her voice filled with surprise and excitement. Xian. Xiaohua also responded and sped down. When he saw the situation of the golden sword, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was a huge sword that was hundreds of feet tall. The huge sword looked very simple and unadorned. The huge sword constantly emitted a golden sword light. The sword light was like tiny flying swords, but when these flying swords rushed out of the huge sword, they were immediately pierced by the Son of Heaven's sword and completely disappeared. Looking into the giant sword, there was an extremely dim and huge figure hidden within. This figure was an old man with golden hair and beard. The old man's hair and beard fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were tightly shut. Although the expression in his eyes could not be seen clearly, his tightly shut lips, his slightly clenched teeth, and the Chuan character between his eyebrows showed the old man's unyielding and fighting spirit. Sword transformation realm? Xiaohua's eyes narrowed as he scanned the giant sword with his divine sense. Young master? Xian bit her lips, her face flushed with surprise. She looked at Xiaohua and said in a low voice, "This is my father. I didn't expect that he would be suppressed by the Son of Heaven's sword." "Do you have a way?" Xiaohua asked straightforwardly. Xian's eyes were filled with deep sorrow, and she almost choked with sobs as she said, "Young master, you don't know, but my Xian family's ancestral gold chi unification technique is restrained by the Son of Heaven's sword. From my father's situation, he couldn't resist the Son of Heaven's sword chi and was forced to transform into a sword. There's a saying in the sect, once you transform into a sword, you will be immortal for all eternity. Without the Gung Earth, 10,000 years will become nothing. Only my father can protect himself now. Without the help of the Gung Earth, I'm afraid he will forever be a sword. Whether it's the Gung Earth or not, I don't know." Xiaohua was a little anxious. "I only know that if I don't save your father from the suppression of the Son of Heaven's sword, even if you find the Gung Earth, I'm afraid it won't be of any use." Xian hurriedly shouted, "Young master, you don't know, but my greatest reliance is the golden hairpin, and the golden hairpin isn't of the earth attribute. Before young master came over, I had already thought about it. Unless there's a great master who can refine true chi to the earth chi unification realm and use the Gung Earth to awaken my father, then I will activate this golden hairpin. Only then can we help my father escape. Otherwise, I'm afraid I can only rely on the Son of Heaven's sword." "The Son of Heaven's sword?" Xiaohua raised his eyes to look at the Son of Heaven's sword floating high in the sky. The sword light was incomparably peaceful, far less fierce than the Kunlun mirror from before. He couldn't help but have an idea in his heart. Xian was worried about her father, but now she was helpless. Seeing Xiaohua looking at the Son of Heaven's sword, she didn't know what to feel. She hoped that Xiaohua could break the suppression of the Son of Heaven's sword so that she could save her father. But she also understood that although Xiaohua's strength far exceeded her expectations, he might not have the ability to break the Son of Heaven's sword. If he wasn't careful, he might even end up dying. "Young master." Xian thought for a moment and couldn't help but shout, "This Son of Heaven's sword looks very gentle, just like the teachings of our Confucian cultivators. It's the attitude of a modest gentleman. But young master should know that when the Son of Heaven is angry, millions of corpses will fall and blood will flow for thousands of miles. If young master touches the Son of Heaven's sword's reverse scale, you will definitely provoke the Son of Heaven's sword. The might of the Son of Heaven is far from what we poor people can compare to." Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Xiaohua, who was originally hesitant, looked up to the sky and laughed. "What is the Son of Heaven? It's called having a genius and a son. What is the Son of Heaven? The Son of Heaven is where the people go. This Son of Heaven's sword doesn't face the people's hearts and suppresses the innocent. How can it become the Son of Heaven's sword? In the Kunlun mirror, there is no heaven and no earth. How can this Son of Heaven's sword be called the Son of Heaven's sword? Now, I am not talented, but I will hold up the sky for you. Since I am the sky in the Kunlun mirror, this Son of Heaven's sword should be in my hands." After laughing, the golden light around Xiaohua's body flourished again. Countless hurricanes rushed out of the mirror and landed in Xiaohua's golden body. The golden body, which was originally hundreds of feet tall, became even bigger, reaching hundreds of feet tall. In this space, it was like a demon god. Young master. Exian clenched her hands tightly. Her body trembled slightly. Her eyes looked at Xiao Hua's golden body, and an unconcealable light was released involuntarily. Rise. Xiao Hua waved his hand. In his huge palm, the heaven and earth sleeve technique was used and firmly covered the Son of Heaven's sword. Then, with a loud shout, he raised his hand and wanted to pick up the Son of Heaven's sword. Clang! A loud sound of metal clashing came from the Son of Heaven's sword. Following this sound, a deterrence that was not inferior to the Kunlun mirror came from the Son of Heaven's sword. Moreover, following this deterrence, thousands of sword lights rushed toward Xiao Hua more ferociously than thousands of soldiers and horses. Hiss! It is indeed the wrath of the Son of Heaven. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air and slapped his forehead. His vast divine sense was released like the pressure of the sun-shrouding art. Although it could not compare to the majesty of the Son of Heaven's sword, it was like a howling wind that rushed straight over. Boom! Tens of thousands of tiny whirlwinds appeared out of thin air, and the entire space shook. The smooth surface of the mirror in the surroundings emitted a creaking sound, and rays of clear light swayed in a very disorderly manner within the space. Xiao Hua's golden body deflated, and he spat out a mouthful of golden blood. Before the blood could dissipate, Xiao Hua gritted his teeth and opened his mouth. The spiritual fire flew out and landed in the blood. Jie! Like a firebird that had been reborn from blood, the edges of the spiritual fire flashed with traces of blood. It expanded rapidly in midair and instantly turned into several acres, covering the Son of Heaven's sword. The moment the Son of Heaven's sword, which was like thousands of soldiers and horses, touched the spiritual fire, it immediately melted and disappeared. Even the unparalleled power of the Son of Heaven's sword was greatly weakened by the spiritual fire. Xiao Hua was overjoyed when he saw this. He stretched out his hand, and his entire right arm turned into flames. The flames were not only spiritual fire, but there were also bits of black flames between the threads of fire. The threads of fire jumped on the side of Xiao Hua's arm and turned into thousands of firebirds that danced. The black flames also roared and turned into devils that wreaked havoc beside these firebirds. Bringing the firebirds and devils, Xiao Hua's firearm followed behind the spiritual fire and grabbed at the Son of Heaven's sword. Rumble! The Son of Heaven's sword let out a roar that sounded like heavenly thunder. It was as if the Son of Heaven was enraged as he looked down on the 9 provinces from above. The sword light that was previously charging forward had now completely turned into a faint gold. It was like a war chariot that crushed space in midair and charged toward the spiritual fire. Anger! 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 Xiao Hua also roared. His left arm that did not transform into flames waved in midair, and 9 lightning balls that were dozens of feet in size also let out a loud roar and fell from afar. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning flashed. The 9 heavenly lightning bolts were one step ahead of the spiritual fire and smashed onto the sword light that was like a chariot. The lightning was like the sun, and the sword light collapsed with a bang. It was even more tragic than 10,000 horses falling to the ground. Although the majesty of the Son of Heaven's sword barely supported the sword light, the spiritual fire that came whistling over immediately completely wiped out the unyielding sword light. Puff, puff, puff. The spiritual fire surged and increased its speed. The space of nearly 1,000 feet flashed and disappeared, drowning the Son of Heaven's sword. Strange sounds of destruction were heard. The previous brilliance of the Son of Heaven's sword was quickly swallowed by the spiritual fire. Even the light pillar that suppressed the sword trembled slightly in the flames. Roar! It seemed to be the roar of a dragon, but it was also the fury of heaven and earth. Billions of sharp thorns suddenly appeared in the red and yellow spiritual fire. These sharp thorns were like swords, releasing a golden brilliance. As soon as they appeared, they immediately covered the entire spiritual fire. Xiao Hua's spiritual fire, which had always been invincible, was instantly pierced by these light thorns. However, although the spiritual fire was divided into extremely small threads, each wisp of spiritual fire was equally powerful. Puff, puff, puff. Fine sounds like bubbles bursting were heard from his sword light, like the washing of rain. In a few breaths, the spiritual fire and the light thorns disappeared, revealing the appearance of the Son of Heaven's sword inside. At this moment, the Son of Heaven's sword was trembling rapidly, and its brilliance was clearly much dimmer. Chapter 3462. Xiao Hua's attack did not stop there. Just as the Son of Heaven's sword appeared, the fiery arm immediately reached inside. The two-colored flame burned the space around the Son of Heaven's sword until it was abnormally distorted. The Son of Heaven's sword could no longer calmly float in its original spot. The entire sword trembled and slashed upward slightly. A gray mark hundreds of feet long flashed in midair. The sword beam streaked past the end of the gray mark and instantly pierced towards the fiery arm. Boom! The moment the Son of Heaven's sword moved, the beam of light that was suppressing the Son of Heaven's sword collapsed. The Son of Heaven's sword phantom on the Son of Heaven's sword shook slightly and looked like it was about to collapse. When Enchanting saw this, ecstasy appeared on her face. Without any hesitation, she waved the golden hairpin in her hand. A golden-green river of stars rushed out from the golden hairpin and headed straight for the Son of Heaven's sword phantom. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of horses and spears clashing could be heard from the phantom and the river of stars. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were fighting inside. In just the blink of an eye, the Son of Heaven's sword phantom that was stubbornly resisting flashed a few times and dimmed. Hum! The golden sword that had been suppressed suddenly let out a long howl. The sword beam extended, but the golden sword beam only extended about 3 feet before dimming and rapidly retreating. The figure of an elder that could be vaguely seen on the giant sword flashed a few times before slowly disappearing. Under the golden hairpin's golden-green light, only a flying sword was left. Enchanting's face was bleak as she called out softly for her father. Unfortunately, the flying sword was cold and she did not hear any response. Enchanting did not dare to be negligent. She waved her hand, wanting to grab the flying sword. However, the flying sword wailed and with a flash of sword beam, it slashed at Enchanting's arm. Enchanting saw the danger and did not dodge. Blood flashed as the flying sword slashed into her flesh. Strangely, the moment the blood touched the flying sword immediately stopped. Its brilliance faded and it obediently landed in Enchanting's hand. There was no joy on Enchanting's face. She carefully hugged the flying sword and looked up at the sky. At that moment, the space that had been sealed beneath the flaming arm was easily cleaved apart by the Son of Heaven's sword. The Son of Heaven's sword had already stabbed into the flaming arm. The extremely arrogant flaming arm was easily sliced into two by the Son of Heaven's sword edgeless. Ouch! An indescribable pain rose from the bottom of Xiao Hua's heart. He looked on helplessly as the severed arm turned into a charred mass and disappeared in midair. Black flames rolled rapidly around the severed arm of the embodiment. The golden sword light flashed like lightning in front of the black flames. The severed arm could not be regenerated. Shwa! The Son of Heaven's sword was raised again, and another gray sword mark appeared. This time, the Son of Heaven's sword's target was Xiao Hua's head. Young lord! In the distance, Enchanting turned pale with fright and hurriedly called out. Unfortunately, she was too far away and not only could her voice not reach him, even her worries would be for naught. Enchanting raised her hand and looked at the golden hairpin in her hand. She clenched her teeth and stabbed the golden hairpin into her heart. Woo! The golden hairpin immediately turned blood red and flew out of Enchanting's hand. It was faster than a shooting star. It drew a bloody mark in midair and charged straight at the Son of Heaven's sword. The Son of Heaven's sword slashed out and all 9 provinces submitted. This sword even caused the space in front of Xiao Hua to collapse. In the blink of an eye, it reached the space between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Go! Xiao Hua's figure flashed and hurriedly waved his hand. The seal of ocean overturning seal roared and rushed out to meet the Son of Heaven's sword. Shwa! There was no suspense at all. The seal of ocean overturning seal merely blocked the Son of Heaven's sword and was immediately split into 2. The roaring coiling dragon was also split into 2 from head to tail. At this moment, Xiao Hua saw that there was no way to dodge. Just as the Son of Heaven's sword was about to slash down on his forehead, woo! A blood-red light flashed and the golden hairpin appeared at the end of the Son of Heaven's sword. Boom! Another loud sound. The golden hairpin hit the Son of Heaven's sword. Unfortunately, although the golden hairpin was powerful, it was still a mantis blocking a chariot. The Son of Heaven's sword only shook a little and the golden hairpin was sent flying. The Son of Heaven's sword that could split heaven and earth continued to slash down. Young master! Exion's heart was in pain. She had not even tasted the joy of saving her father, and she immediately had to pick another bitter fruit. Just as Exion was crying blood, suddenly, a brilliant light appeared above her head. That formless nascent soul had appeared from the top of Xiaohua's head. The nascent soul's two small hands formed hand seals and pieces of mirror light appeared. Pieces of mirror surfaces blocked the Son of Heaven's sword at the same time. Ka 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 ka. Countless crisp sounds rang out in the air. These mirror surfaces continuously appeared in front of the Son of Heaven's sword. However, these mirror surfaces were continuously shattered by the Son of Heaven's sword. Seeing that the nascent soul's spell to control the icy mirror was effective, Xiaohua felt a joy of escaping death. He took advantage of this opportunity to quickly dodge. Then the nascent soul waved its hand again. Shua! Several beams of light appeared from the surrounding mirror surfaces and shone in front of Xiaohua. A huge Kunlun mirror appeared. Boom! The Son of Heaven's sword struck again. The entire Kunlun mirror shattered with a bang, turning into millions of fragments. However, all of these fragments flashed with residual light. When these lights shone in front of the Son of Heaven's sword, the entire space was filled with a grayish-white color. Cracks appeared in the space. Come out, there was another soft shout. The nascent soul was very calm. It rubbed its hand again and dozens of beams of light appeared again. Around the spatial cracks, 4 Kunlun mirrors appeared at the same time. The flashing mirror light sealed the area around the Son of Heaven's sword. The Son of Heaven's sword was like a galloping horse. It finally had no way out here. After blocking left and right in the space, it gradually calmed down. At this moment, 4 huge firearms stretched out from the 4 Kunlun mirrors at the same time. Just like the Son of Heaven's sword that had broken them, they grabbed at the Son of Heaven's sword from 4 directions. The Son of Heaven's sword slashed and one of the firearms in front of its head shook slightly. It was as if it was a mirror-like shadow and did not break. Then the Son of Heaven's sword pounced towards the firearm beside it. However, the strange thing was that when the Son of Heaven's sword slashed 4 firearms in a row, these 4 firearms were actually nothingness. None of them were broken. Furthermore, just as the Son of Heaven's sword's blade flashed past the last firearm, the first firearm quickly grabbed the hilt of the Son of Heaven's sword in a flash. Roar! The Son of Heaven's sword roared angrily again. The sword body trembled rapidly, as if it was about to break free from the firearm. Hum! Countless flames and black flames surged out from the firearm, completely covering the hilt of the Son of Heaven's sword. The fist-sized heart was also injected with black flames and flames at the same time, turning red, yellow, and black. Swoosh! The firearm trembled slightly. The 4 Kunlun mirrors once again emitted a powerful light, imprisoning the Son of Heaven's sword. After a full meal, the Son of Heaven finally calmed down. Ha ha ha! Xiaohua laughed loudly. His voice shook the sky. The 4 Kunlun mirrors instantly turned into fireflies. As Xiaohua raised his hand, the Son of Heaven's sword flashed and pointed at the sky. He chanted, "I hold the Son of Heaven's sword. The world is in my chest. Congratulations, young master. Congratulations, young master." Exion, who was hugging the flying sword, flew up weakly with a flushed face. She congratulated the incomparably tall Xiaohua's Dharma body. Xiaohua smiled slightly. His body slowly shrunk until it was the size of an ordinary person. He said with a smile, "Congratulations to you too. You have obtained the flying sword. I have obtained the treasured sword. We have both fulfilled our wishes. Young master's remarkable abilities are far from what I can compare to." Exion's eyes were filled with admiration. She hurriedly replied, "If it wasn't for young master accompanying me this time, not to mention being able to save Jiayan, even my crippled body would have to stay in Saint River." Speaking up to here, Xiaohua glanced at the flying sword in Exion's arms again. He asked with concern, "Exion, how do you save your father?" "I don't know if I can help." Speaking of her father, a trace of worry appeared on Exion's face. She said faintly, "Although young master's methods are heaven-defying, father has already used my Exion family's secret technique under the suppression of the Emperor's sword. Like I said before, he needs the help of a rustic grandmaster." Only then can he be awakened with my assistance from the side. But, Xiao Hua said anxiously, your father and Xian family's patriarch are not on good terms. Now that he has brought the flying sword back, wouldn't he be walking into a trap? Seeing Xiao Hua's concern for her, Xian pursed her lips and smiled. Young master, don't worry. This is Elysium. Far from hidden immortal continent. I have made many friends in Elysium. Finding one or two rustic grandmasters is not difficult. Hee, that's good, that's good. Xiao Hua rubbed his hands and smiled happily. I am also relieved. Speaking up to here, Xian looked at the mirror on the left and asked tentatively, Young master has already subdued the emperor's sword. But how do we get out of here? How do I and young master return to the Sage River? Hee, that's easy. Xiao Hua waved his hand in the air and a simple Kunlun mirror appeared in his hand. Xian was shocked and asked curiously, Young master, how did you subdue this Kunlun mirror? How come I didn't see it? Hee, it was a coincidence. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I used to have a magic treasure. It was a fragment of the Kunlun mirror. When I entered this place earlier, the fragment was fused with the Kunlun mirror. Because that magic treasure had already been refined by me, I can use the real Kunlun mirror if I don't have to. Young master is very talented. Xian sincerely admired and praised again. Xiao Hua raised the Kunlun mirror and spat a mouthful of clear air on it. The Kunlun mirror shot out a misty blue light and landed in the air. A passage appeared in front of Xian. Xiao Hua put away the Kunlun mirror and stretched out his hand with a smile. Let's go, I will send you out. Yes, thank you for your trouble, young master. Xian replied. Her face blushed. She slightly hesitated and sent her soft hand over. Holding Xiao Hua's hand, she stepped into the passage with Xiao Hua. The passage was actually very short. Before the warmth of Xian's soft hand could warm Xiao Hua's heart, a cool breeze blew in front of his eyes and a mist of water hit his face. The two of them had already reached the Sage River. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.